So much, you may even get tired of winning, and you'll say, please, please, it's too much winning. We can't take it anymore. Mr. President, it's too much. And I'll say, no, it isn't. We have to keep winning. We have to win more. We're going to win more.
Mr. President, I come to you with a commission from the boys. The boys want you to know that they are very appreciative of all the things that you've done for them. They have one request. Please deport the big booty Latinas last. Keep them around till the very, very end. This is not me speaking. I'm a happily married man. I have no cause for big booty Latinas, but I can appreciate my boys in need. So I come to you, Mr. President, with this solemn request. I'm doing my duty. I am echoing the voice of the people, amplifying it up to you. Oh, how you guys doing? That was a banger. I gotta put in a note with the cyberbully to make sure that he plays that one more often. Livin' La Vida Loca in the style of Slipknot with Corey Taylor's vocals. It's actually Corey Taylor's voice. Corey Taylor did not sing it. There was no point at which, that is in the public record. There is no point at which Corey Taylor sang Living La Vida Loca. But we have his voice singing Living La Vida Loca in the style of Slipknot. And it is a banger. If you guys missed that on the pre-show, then you must not have been here live. You got to be here live if you want to get the pre-show. On Kick, every Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday, and Saturday. We're going to be skipping Wednesday going forward. And doing a weekly ASTROLABE instead. So I stream live on Kick and on X. So it is there for what it's worth. Occasionally I'll see comments that come in from X. If you are watching on X, do us a favor and say hello. And even better, come over to Kick. Come join the crew here in the live chat. It is one of the most active live chats that I've ever seen. And it is, but it's like the perfect speed. It's not, if we added another, 500 people into this is one of my dilemmas, is like half the premise of the show is the live chat and interacting with you guys and feeding off of you and that whole thing. I couldn't do the show if it wasn't live. It would be a whole different thing. It wouldn't be an ASTROLABE. It would just be me doing a recorded show. So I don't know what's going to happen. If the audience gets bigger, then does it kill the chat? Does it make the chat less valuable? Yeah, the chat will definitely go to subs only at some point. You guys were very generous with the subs last month. I appreciate that. The best month that I've had on Kick thus far. So very much appreciate you guys for all of that. Colin Ross says Jim Bob gets around 500 live and the chat is manageable. Yeah, it seems like 500 would probably be about the ceiling. Like beyond that point, like Tim Pool's chat or even Asmongold's chat. I have no idea how Asmongold does it, how he actually interacts with his chat. It's insane. It's like, I don't know. He like the dude's got to have eyes of a freaking hawk to be able to pick stuff out as it's flying by. Every once in a while, you guys really get going while I'm talking, and I'm just like, yeah, no, I'm not even going to be able to catch it. There's going to be some conversations that are just lost to me forever. But 500 up to about 500 seems like that's probably the line. But please do come over and hang out on Kick while we're streaming live. Got an alpha male alert to come in. We're starting over a new month, so we're back to 0. This one snuck in the back end of November, but an alpha male alert from the Patriot, Meet Scott, who I have actually had the opportunity to meet Scott. I'd seen Meet Scott around here for a while, and then he hit me up, and I was like, hold on a second. I know you. I had no idea that was you.
Here comes the money.
Hey, alpha male alert.
Here comes the money. Money, money,
Dollar, 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 dollar.
Ching, ching, bling, bling, cut the chatter. You ain't talking money, then you're talking no matter.
Bummed I couldn't make it to DC. Happy birthday.
Yes, man, I was bummed to not see you as well. Hopefully, it'll happen again. There will be more DC meetups, so hopefully you can make one in the future. And also, thank you for the happy birthday wishes. My birthday is on Thursday, so we will be labing on my birthday. We don't. Birthdays they're fine. I've coming up on my 37th now. I've had lots of birthdays. I know what birthdays are like. So it's a day. It definitely is a day that I keep track of and I pay attention to. But now I'm kind of like, oh yeah, there's another one of those. Like you're sitting there and you watch them fly by and they're going by faster and faster, and you're like, oh, sure enough, look at that. They're still going by. They just keep on going. They don't slow down, do they? So Thursday will be my birthday. Thank you, Meet Scott. If you guys would like to make it a happy birthday, you can contribute to the Make More Ericksons Fund. Matt's streamer salary, tips.kingpill.com. Let me make sure that I have that in there. Remember to tip your streamer. And then I got to pin it. It'd be nice if you could input a pinned tweet ahead of time. But you can't. And I also can't pin a tweet from mobile. So I got to do it here. There we go. Remember to tip your streamers, tips.kingpill.com. Also, you can, if you send something via Venmo or Cash App and you're watching live, just let me know in the chat, get my attention, and I will, I can pull it up and read it if you would like. If you explicitly do not want me to read it, I won't dox you, I won't give away your name, but if you do not want me to read what's in the message, just tell me so. Otherwise, that's my workaround since I can't incorporate it with Streamlabs to push the notifications in real time. But at Kingpilled on Venmo and Cash App. And then also, thanks to Lurch for the reminder, I will be posting an actual Bitcoin address in the notes later on. I've got the Lightning address there, but I'll post an actual just a raw Bitcoin address for those of you who would like to send Bitcoin. I am very happy to. I don't spend a lot of time talking about Bitcoin, but I spend a lot of time thinking about Bitcoin and looking at Bitcoin and listening to things about Bitcoin. And I don't want to be the Bitcoin guy, the guy that everyone knows a Bitcoin guy is kind of like, you have a vegan or a CrossFit enthusiast or something. And you're kind of like, Yes, I know. You're vegan. You don't eat meat. Yes, I'm aware. You don't even drink milk. I know you had a very, very nice soy milk this morning. I'm happy for you. And you get almond milk in your coffee. Very, very good to know. Everyone has someone like that in their life. And there's a Bitcoin version of that. I don't want to be the Bitcoin version of that, but I am a very big fan of Bitcoin. And a very big believer in it. So if you would like to send me some Bitcoin, then I will. I'll have the link for it, and with all the other links that you can find on the podcast description or down in the YouTube description. And also subscribe on Substack. That's where I post this. That's the best place. Some of these things, occasionally I play a clip that gets the video just taken down off of YouTube, and then I've got to go in and edit it and clip that part out, and then it has to sit and reload. And if there's multiple of them, I can only do one at a time, so it can take a while for the replay to post to YouTube. So if you're looking for a replay and you can't find it, and you think you should have done a show, then go check Substack. That'll be the place for it. I've never had anything taken down on Substack, so knock on wood, it'll stay that way. And the viewer experience for replay is terrific on Substack. So it's almost better than YouTube in a lot of ways. So that's I just wish you could go. One of the really nice things about YouTube is you can go up to like 4x, and I never really have any reason to go past 2.5. Occasionally I've done 3, but like it's not a fun experience. I'm sitting there. I'm doing 3 if I'm like, I need to get this done because I have a show to do and I want to know what they talk about. And I'm just like through it. But otherwise, I'll go up to 2.5 occasionally. And it's really nice that YouTube offers that. Thus far, the only places I've seen that offer that are Audible, YouTube, and I think there's another one. Maybe the Apple Podcasts app does. I don't think it does, though. I think it only goes up to 2x. I do appreciate there are few of us. There are only 12 of us, but those of us who like to listen above 2x, we very much appreciate that recognition of our minority status and the inclusion of that. I can't imagine it's that difficult, like just to add it beyond 2x. Like once you're going up to 2x, like once you go beyond 1x, then it seems like it should be easy to just do up as much as you want. I should be able to do it on 10x if I want to. Heinz says, I sometimes skip listening live just so I can do 2x. Yeah, I actually am one to do that as well. I am a live streamer who skips other live streams just so I can listen to them on 2x. You caught me. I just started listening to a book, the first fiction that I have read in a very, very, very long time. I don't even know if I have any other fiction books. Let me see if I've got other fiction books in my Audible library. I actually had to pause the Audible subscription because I just used a credit. I have 11 credits. So I had literally gone a year without buying a book with it. I built up the credits, and I just had to pause it so I can get caught up on some of these books. But I don't think that I have any fiction in here at all. Atomic Habits, that's really old. I guess I have Cryptonomicon by Neil Stephenson, but I never actually got into it. Everything else is all nonfiction. Joseph Campbell, Michael Heiser, Tom Holland, Graham Hancock, Andrew Stephen Damick, Hans Hermann Hoppe, Oswald Spengler, Patrick Deneen, Stephen DeYoung, Josiah Trenum, R.J. Rushdoony, Peter Zeihan, C.S. Lewis, Jordan Belfort. I don't know why, I got The Way of the Wolf because there was some section of it I wanted to listen to or something like that. I got the Jason Lowry Software book in here, which is one of the best Bitcoin books. But I just started reading at the recommendation of my good friend Lox Populi on Twitter. He told me I should listen to Harlot's Ghost by Norman Mailer, and I went and looked it up, and the audiobook on it is 48 hours long, 48 hours and 40 minutes. But I downloaded it the other day and listened to the first, and actually, so this is funny. I started listening to it on like 2.2 or something like usual, but then I realized, I was like, this is actually kind of weird for fiction, and maybe I'll start getting used to it and I'll be able to speed it up. But listening to fiction being really fast just kind of broke the experience a little bit. So I just have it on 1 1/4. But I got through the first 4 hours of it, and it's very good, very interesting. It's the first Norman Mailer book that I've read, but it's fun to read a little bit of fiction, and then it's CIA espionage shit, stories. I mean, it's 48 hours long, and I'm 4 hours into it, so I've a 12th of the way. But it sounds like it seems pretty interesting. It's like a CIA sort of. It's kind of like what's the word? it's like it's fiction, but it's written to kind of blur the lines between fiction and actual like historical biography kind of. So I'm I'm listening to the words of a Jew at the recommendation of a Jew. Shapiro times 2 is the coolest kick handle I've seen this week. Yeah, someone in here is Shapiro times 2. And that's great. Donkey Bite says Carl Dahl faction is very good on Audible. Support Carl. He's a good egg. I just met Carl just recently. He is a good egg. Thank you for that, because that reminded me that now that I'm starting to read some fiction, I can give myself permission to do some other fiction stuff. Pale Morning Dude says fiction on 1.5, everything else at 1.75. Dave says, I do fiction on 1.75, but it was Ayn Rand, and it was like 10 years ago. Yeah. I'll probably get up to, I think I'll probably get up to like 1.75, most likely, eventually. Slutty Milk's doing Storm of Steel. 1.7-ish on Spotify. Yeah. All right. Anyways, let's get into the show here. I had a pretty hard time finding something to talk about. It was, I don't know, everything is just sort of hovering, it feels like tension on a knife's edge, but everyone's sort of distracted by this thing or that thing. And there's like some big stories that are going on right now, but I was just having a hard time getting my brain plugged into them. But finally was able to put something together here. We're going to talk about No Balls Tim Walz. I'm not going to try to do one of the balls rants like Jason does, but I love it when Jason does his balls rants. I haven't heard one in a while. So No Balls Tim Walz, seriously retarded Tim Walz, as our president calls him. And then some of the fraud and stuff that's going on in Minnesota is just insane. It's difficult. It's difficult to grok the magnitude of these fraud rings, like just how much of like major industries and entire world economies are being supported just through fraud. The American taxpayer is bearing the brunt of just an absolutely astonishingly large millstone hung around its neck. It's genuinely like it's almost to the point where it's like, how do you even unwind all of this? How do you get into something like this? How do you take down this large of a network of criminal organizations? You don't just take the whole thing down. You just got to muddle your way through, man. You got to do the best you can, but you just got to muddle your way through this sort of shit, because you could probably have hundreds of thousands of people dedicate the rest of their careers just to chasing down something like this. And there isn't, you're just chasing your tail the whole time. So we'll talk about these massive fraud rings and the effects that they're starting to show on the actual economy. And then there's this big hoopla going on about the Venezuelan narco-terrorists' boat and double tapping the terrorists. Now all of a sudden talking about war crimes. And I've got a very funny little factoid for you guys about the Hague, the official U.S. position with respect to the Hague, which is very kind of funny and ironic. But they're really coming for Pete Hegseth on this and trying to create the pretext for their color revolution. So I got some stuff on that, and then talk a little bit of foreign policy stuff, and then some commentary on Cash Patel and Dan Bongino, and I think like measuring your expectations, having a realistic understanding of of what's in front of us, and then here, depending on how long this takes, toward the back end, the very end here, we'll read about ISAT, the Indian subcontinent's cultural honor system. This is one that's going to stick around for quite a while. But before we get to all of that, I do have some just kind of fun stuff. How about this? This is the kind of idea you have when you're having a few garage beers with your buddies and something clicks. what if you could use air hockey technology to move furniture? Then somebody actually took the idea to market. Now, I don't know if this is AI. This is kind of a funny thing. Now, when you see this, this could very easily be AI with the level of detail and everything that's in it. I would, if somebody came out and said, no, this is AI, it's fake, I'd be like, okay, yeah, I believe it. But even still, like, I wonder if this would actually be possible. Like, how much weight you could lift with something like this. I would imagine that it would have something to do with the integrity of these different joints in the, like, because you got to be able to generate some measure of air pressure, and then you're distributing that air pressure over a kind of a broad surface, and you got to be able to do it in such a way that it doesn't blow out the intermediary joints. Severe B says, I think you'd be constrained by the power of the vacuum. Yeah, definitely. And things like these screws holding this in here. Like, there's a number of different potential weak points in here, and I don't know if this would be the most efficient air delivery mechanism. Like, would it be easier if you had? I don't know if having this like flex pipe in here would be better, or if it would be better to have like a framework that's like a solid framework, so there's no drag on the inside of the tubes, so you're maximizing the air generated through it. But it's a really I worked for a moving company for a while, so that this gave me a little extra. It jumped at me a little more when I saw it, because I would definitely have used something like this if it was conceivable. Then it's like, what about when you're going over bumps and stuff? If you're going downhill or downstairs or something like that. But half the time, like, getting it from the top of the stairs to the place was not the worst. It was getting it from the room down the halls and around to the stairs that was the worst. So something like this would have been amazing. Also, I'd imagine it won't work on carpet. It'll only work on hardwood floor. So I don't. Yeah. Anyways, I don't know if it's a real thing or not. But these would be the things I'd be thinking about if I was trying to design something like this. Cabinets are made of bullshit wood nowadays. So this might be real. Yeah. I mean, this one here looks like it looks a little sturdier. Like, I don't think it's plywood. But yeah, I think it's pretty sturdy. It looks to me like it probably weighs. It might weigh anywhere from 100 pounds or so up to like 225, depending on how solidly made it is. It looks a little thinner back in here, looking at the sides of the walls and everything in there. Anyways, I was extremely autistic when I worked for the moving company. I very quickly I was the one who would pack the back of the truck, because I would go walk through the house and I'd be like, okay, taking stock of everything. All right, bring me this and then this and this. Do it in this order. I'm going to set it up. I'm like building it, constructing it in the back of the truck in my head. And then the guys knew that if you climbed onto my truck and you started trying to like move this thing or that thing around, you'd get yourself kicked out of the truck pretty quick. My truck packing was an art form. All right. 6 minutes and 35 seconds of pure distilled right-wing art. It's the entire video. You guys have seen clips from this. But McGill's, the absolute patriot on X, has brought us the full video. Now, I don't know if this is going to get the video taken off. So, again, remember what I said about Substack? If you're watching this later on and all of a sudden it does some weird thing and just seems to skip past the video, then it's because the NFL copyright claimed it and YouTube made me take it down. Otherwise, here you go.
Time again. At sunrise, I fight to stay asleep, 'cause I don't wanna leave the comfort of this place. 'Cause there's a hunger, a longing
I remember this country.
Life I live when I'm away. So let's go there. Let's make our escape. Come on, let's go there. Let's ask, can we stay? Can you take me higher to a place where line and sea? Can you take me higher to a place where golden Hello, my friend, meet again. It's been a while, where should we begin?
This is Thanksgiving 2001.
Within my heart, memories of perfect love that you gave to me. Oh, I remember when you are with me. I'm free, I'm careless, I believe. Above all the others will fly.
I have that facial hair.
Tears to my eyes, my sacrifice. I just want to say hello again. When you are with me, I'm free, I'm careless, I believe. Above all the others will fly. This brings tears to my eyes. 'Cause when you are with me, I'm free, I'm careless, I believe. Above all the others will fly. This brings tears to my eyes, my sacrifice. At times life is wicked and I just can't see the light. A silver lining sometimes isn't enough to make some wrong seem right. Whatever life brings, I've been through everything, and now I'm on my knees again. But I know I must go on, although I heard I must be strong, because inside I know that many feel this way.
The N-word.
Children, don't stop dancing. Believe you can fly away, away. Am I hiding in the shadows? Forget the pain and forget the sorrows. Am I
I have a dream.
in the shadows? Forget the pain and forget the sorrows. But I know I must
Make them
go
backup
on.
singers again. My wife.
Heard I must be strong, because inside I know that many feel this way. Children, don't stop dancing. Believe you can fly. Am I hiding in the shadows? Are we hiding in the shadows?
This was not that long ago. Not that long ago. 24 years ago. I remember this. I watched this. I lived this. Yeah, real patriots remember. I have a dream that one day we will be back. A Dove released as we blew the shit out of the Middle East. Yeah. I totally get why other countries just hated the shit out of the United States. But none of us had any idea. Nobody knew. Nobody knew what was going on. They're just going to be so, I knew. Yeah, great. Yeah, you knew. Good for you. You want a cookie? Nobody knew. I remember living in this world. We know now. We know now. But we can live in this world again. We can live in this world even when we know. If you haven't faked going to the moon, your opinion is moot. My wife is on a heater tonight, guys. If you have not successfully faked going to the moon, your opinion doesn't matter. Your opinion is moo. Your opinion is moo, yes. Oh, I wish I had a cow sound on my soundboard. Do they have it in the defaults at all? Let me see. No. Ooh. Got a pretty gnarly fart. That was pretty good. I don't think there's anything else that would even be close. What's this? Wilhelm scream. Yeah, no cows. Never do that again. Oh man, there was some styles in there that, like this right here. When I was, what year was this? I was like 12. When I was 12, I thought that looked cool as shit. I was like, yeah, I want to have like the spiky hair. And I tried to grow like the one line goatee thing. Oh, man. People went out in public looking like that on purpose. Oh. And then the jeans. This is the other thing here. The jeans. He's got the big baggy jersey with this huge baggy jeans. This is America. This was real. Every single person who was there felt, look at that belt on her. Every single person who was there in that building felt that. No one's sitting on a smartphone. There weren't any. Look at the kids. The kids are all happy and into it. You got the one white kid in the middle of all the black kids. He's like, yeah, I'm the cool one. Oh. A little headband. I remember seeing girls look like that. Little girls that would go around with their hair like that all the time. Such a totally different world. And yet it's not that far from us. This is America too. If you don't get how awesome this is, that's fine. America's just not for you.
In the morning, she calls me. Radio reminds me of my home far away. And driving down the road, I get the feeling that
Like, why wouldn't you do this if you could? Get it, Hillbilly Joes. They even got the key change. Looks like a Rob Zombie album title. Oh, you guys are on fire tonight. Life support unplugger. You get 10,000 internet points for that. 10,000 Patriot points, I mean. Plus 10,000 Patriot points to life support unplugger's account for that one. Han Pritchard says, that is indeed dope. Eat shit, Europores. That's right, Europores. Eat shit. Trust Plansar says, Republicans introduced Birthright Citizenship Act. Oh, did they? Okay, hold on a second. What are the details on this? Hold on. Hold the fort. Let's, I'm sure, is Eric Doherty tweeting about this? Oh, J.D. Vance tweeted something. Let's see. No, I'm not seeing anything just yet. Who will Trump nominate as Fed chair? Trump confirmed the announcement is coming soon, possibly December 2 or 3. Also says that he has I saw announced today that he's going to do a big announcement. I think it was tomorrow at 2 p.m. So I wonder if he's announcing new Fed chair then. Right now, Kevin Hassett is at 75% odds. Seems like he's the favorite. I'll be kind of surprised, honestly, if it's him. I kind of don't think that it's going to be him, but we'll see. Trump warns of hell to pay if Honduras alters election results. United States President Donald Trump said it looks like Honduras is trying to change the results of Sunday's presidential election. He warned that if the results are being altered, there will be hell to pay. Oh, he's going after Shifty Schiff, too. Adam Shifty Schiff is guilty of crimes against our country. The seditious six are a threat to America. Oh, he's saying more about Honduras. We have a very loyal listener from Honduras who's been DMing me about what's going on down there. So I want to stop and pause on this for a sec. He says, looks like Honduras is trying to change the results of their presidential election. If they do, there will be hell to pay. The people of Honduras voted in overwhelming numbers on November 30th. The National Electoral Commission, the official body charged with counting the votes, abruptly stopped counting at midnight on November 30th. Their count showed a close race between Tito Asfura and Salvador Nasrallah, with Asfura holding a narrow lead of 500 votes. Their tally was stopped when only 47% of the vote was counted. It is imperative that the commission finish counting the votes. Hundreds of thousands of Hondurans must have their votes counted. Democracy must prevail. Very, very interesting. So Tito Asfura is the guy that Trump very, very much favors, and that he's probably the closest thing they have to something like a Bukele, as I understand it. But there's been funny business going on with the election up to this point already. This guy Nasrallah is actually, I think he's like some kind of celebrity or something, who was running, I think, as like a spoiler third party, kind of, but then wound up being second place in the vote getting. So I don't remember. I think it was it Trust Plansar at the beginning? Was it you that was talking about the what Trump's approach to the rest of the hemisphere is? Yeah, it was you. Yeah, that it seems as if he's really prioritizing getting favorable governments installed in all of the nations in the Western Hemisphere, all the South and Central American nations, as a matter of like facilitating the deportation effort, because they need, a lot of these countries have been taken over and been used by, really it's by the intelligence community industry they've subverted all these governments so they can funnel all of their criminals and their unstable young men and in bed with cartels and everything to funnel guns and drugs and men and people and everything into the country. So if you're going to get all of these people out, if you're going to deport them, they have to be deported to somewhere. If you think about, like, you could say over the last, I don't know, probably 25 years, there's been 50 to 100 million people brought into the country. And so all of them have been brought in here. Moving all of them back out is going to be a huge culture shock to wherever they're sent. Because you're talking tens of millions of people being pushed out into other countries. So it's not like you just deport them and everything continues going as it has gone. The ability to deport that many people requires favorable government cooperation with the countries you're deporting to. Yet another reason why the whole foreign versus domestic policy thing is totally fake. It's not real. There's no such thing. Justine!
I saw that there was a far inferior copycat on the last stream. I am gravely disappointed. Tia could not hope to match my cadence, not my mastery of language. Trolling may be a art, but TTS harassment is a whole gaping edifice of masculine power. Woo.
You're gonna need to clean up the typos there. There was, let's see, how many did I count? I am gravely disappointed. Thou, instead of they, could not hope to match my cadence. Trolling may be a art. Come on, Justine. You got to get your act together here. We're speaking the Queen's English here. We're speaking Dawn's language. That's what we're doing. I know you want to speak the Queen's English, but we're going to speak the Dawn's language. But yeah, so sending all of these people out into these other countries requires the cooperation of those countries to receive them and incorporate them and not just send them right back again. So there is no mass deportations without strong, engaged negotiations with leadership in several dozen other countries, just so that there's a place to put all of the people. How was I talking about? Oh, because I saw the thing about Honduras. So yeah, Truss Plansar was saying that it seems as if this is a priority, especially in the South and Central America governments for the Trump administration, which probably informs to some degree what's happening in Venezuela. Obviously, they've gotten El Salvador on side. They've got Argentina on side. Brazil is going to be a gigantic issue, and then Colombia is kind of part and parcel with Venezuela in a lot of ways. So, yeah, I'm sure whatever comes after Venezuela, there's still going to be there's going to be another one. Speaking of mass deportations, we're getting more Kino pandering and advertising from the DHS account. The CBP Home app is offering illegal aliens the best Cyber Monday deal of the season. Fly home for free and receive a $1,000 exit gift.
Are you an illegal alien in the United States? Are you looking for the perfect holiday gift for your family? Then DHS has the best holiday deal of
Are
your
you
life.
black?
It's
Are you
the
Mexican?
CBP Home app. It's free. It's fast. Just download the CBP Home app and fill out your information. We'll take care of your travel arrangements, and once you're home, you'll receive a $1,000 stipend. So don't delay. Join the 2 million illegal aliens who have already left. Download the CBP Home app today and get home for the holidays. Are you an illegal...
Extremely Kino. Definitely going to have to send this one to the cyberbully. Thank you to our great Homeland Security people Slutty Moses kind of work for this agency, please. The job sounds so fun. They probably got so many people who want to work social media for them now. Imagine the applications they must get for that. So over 2 million asylum claims are being totally halted by President Trump. And I think for the it's worthwhile trying to keep all these different narrative strings running, that if we understand what the immigration industry is all about, this mass coordinated invasion of the United States, then, and specifically using asylum, the CIA and other intelligence organizations and NGOs have used the asylum system specifically. They've gamed it to bring in actual trained operatives into the country. So they've turned the asylum system into a vector for importing foreign military operatives, effectively. That's what this guy that killed the National Guard chick and the guy who's in the hospital now, he was a foreign military operative trained by the CIA who was brought into the country. So they've been using the asylum system specifically to bring a foreign military into the country. So now the Trump administration is blocking the asylum process for these specific countries. And it sounds like there may be more to come.
Expected a flurry of new immigration decisions, not only targeting people from Afghanistan, but also halting all asylum decisions until further vetting can be done.
The nonsense that the left gave us with this Operation Welcome Allies. Look, there was no vetting. If you think there was vetting, I have a bridge to sell you.
Have a good night, Florida girl. Thanks for dropping in. It was Operation Allies Welcome was the name of this program. Justine!
I'm sorry, my posts need to be cleaned of typos. They defiantly, rally, acally need to be less dirty, for sure. And maybe, drop the superfluous, excessive, redundancy of words and verbiage. $50 on Caracol Caracas, but with tacos served on Wednesday.
You still had a typo. Acally instead of actually. You're going to have to send another one to correct yet another typo. Definitely do it as superfluously as possible. Thank you, Justine. Oh, I was going to say, Slutty Milk says this is partly why Trump focused so hard on worst of the worst rather than quantity for a while, besides the general crime reduction. Right. Because if you're going after the worst of the worst, you're at least if you've got to try to get foreign military assets that have been embedded in your country out, how are you going to go about that? Well, one of the best proxies for it is going to be some sort of history or relationship to violence. There's going to be plenty who don't have that you've got to, but that's going to take a lot of investigatory work because by definition, a lot of these people brought in, there's very little record of them, who they are.
The Trump administration has now paused issuing visas for people traveling on Afghan passports, as well as stopped processing all immigration requests from the country. Now, the new directives do go beyond just Afghanistan. U.S. Citizenship and Immigration Services announced that all asylum decisions will be put on hold until every single person is vetted and screened, while the status of green card holders from 19 countries of concern will be re-examined. Now, today on the international front, President Trump posted...
Here are those 19 countries: Cuba, Haiti, Venezuela, Sierra Leone, Equatorial Guinea, Republic of Congo, Togo, Chad, Libya, Sudan, Burundi, Somalia, Yemen, Eritrea, Iran, Turkmenistan, Afghanistan, Burma, and Laos. Basically a whole bunch of communist shitholes, honestly, by and large. There's some of them that aren't, but the majority of them would absolutely fall into the category of communist shitholes.
Will be re-examined. Now, today on the international front, President Trump posted on Truth Social warning airlines, pilots, as well as drug dealers that airspace over Venezuela is closed. After more than...
I love how he says to all airlines, pilots, okay, also drug dealers and human traffickers. FYI, human traffickers. Be aware that the airspace above and surrounding Venezuela is closed in its entirety. Everyone thought, okay, this is the thing that, it sounds like there might be a happening. There's been reports that Trump had a conversation with Maduro, and Maduro was trying to negotiate with him, and Trump's like, we'll negotiate by you. There is no negotiation. I'm taking all of this stuff holding it very lightly, because unless something comes directly from Trump himself, one of his outlets, or literally from his mouth, then I'm taking everything with some varying level of salt, because this is obviously getting into fog of war stuff, and the psyops are flying thick and fast. So I'm not really, I'm not really going to go into a lot of the details of every single thing that's happening, because I don't know how much I can believe of much of what's going on here. But yeah, slowly ramping up pressure. Han Pritchard says, but Matt, Trump is only doing this because it helps Israel and Bibi. Well, that is one of the narratives. Yeah, that is one of the narratives that I've seen out there. And I don't know that it's not, but I also don't know that it is. So it seems that Israel and Bibi are related, obviously, through the Machado Venezuelan connection. But thus far, it seems as if Trump is leaving open the possibility that Maduro stays in place and simply just turns and allows Trump to own him. It seems as if he's leaving that as a possibility. And I think it's worth remembering that this is a way that Trump operates. This is part of him not being ideological. He's looking for a good deal that gets him what he wants. And so if you, my enemy, my mortal sworn enemy, if you decide that you want to change your tune and you want to give me what I want, then I'm happy to work something out where you stay in place. So like with Kim Jong-un, for example. And then there's the Al-Qaeda guy in Syria, that he's kind of like, I don't really care who you are. If you're going to do the job and you're going to give me what I want, then sure, I'll work with you. This is what makes it hard to know what's going on with Bibi. There's been very strong indications that Trump is absolutely does not trust or like Bibi, but then he's also done some things that could very much be seen as doing a favor for Bibi. And so it's, if you want to just say, oh, here's all the really obvious evidence that Trump is running cover for Bibi or whatever because he's beholden to Zionist donors, there's lots of things that you can point to indicate that. But there's also lots of things that you can point to indicate that that's not the case, and that Trump is maintaining Bibi as an asset. He would rather work with Bibi than whomever else, and he owns Bibi and has leverage over Bibi in some way or another. So for him, if he advocates for Bibi to not be arrested, and like counter signals him being considered a war criminal and stuff, that's because he's trying to maintain his asset in place. I'm not saying that is the case. I'm saying that it's impossible to know one way or the other, because this is Donald Trump's methodology. So there is, I think, ample reason to suspect that he may be willing to work with Maduro if he turns him in like mob boss politics style. And then if that's not possible, then he'll throw him out on his ass. So going back to this, Justine. Oh no.
I will take anything from Trump's mouth. Oh yeah, slowly ramping up the pressure until it pops. He's such a master at warming me up to the possibility of being owned. Enemies to allies is the chick-litification of geopolitics. 50 Shades of Dawn. Don Juan.
50 Shades of Dawn. Enemies to allies is the chick-litification of geopolitics. See, this is why you show up to the Astrolabe, because you're going to get lines like that occasionally. Enemies to allies is the chick-litification of geopolitics. In the middle of horny posting from Justine. This is just part of the magic of the this is part of the magic of the entire thing here. Politically Catholic says the narrative that Israel gets oil from Venezuela is completely false, by the way. Israel and Venezuela have virtually zero trade between them, so the keeping Maduro in helps Bibi is bullshit. One of the alternate theories that I'd seen, and I wish I could remember now who it was that said this. I think it might have been Alex Craner, but I don't want to put words in his mouth. But one of the speculations is that it's Netanyahu and Machado that are trying to work something out where Venezuelan oil can go to Israel. I haven't had the time to go try to run this all down, and it was presented speculatively in the first place. So one thing you could run to ground, I suppose, if you really wanted to, is to see if Israel has the capacity to refine Venezuelan oil, or what it would take to develop that capacity. Oh yeah, it was Joaquin Flores. That's who it was. Yes. Thank you, Trust Plan. Sorry. Yeah, it was Joaquin Flores. I think it's interesting speculatively, but one of the points he was making with that is if Machado and so just assume it's true, just for the sake of it, just assume it's true, just to illustrate a point here. If Netanyahu and Machado are collaborating, Netanyahu wants Machado to take over from Maduro so that you can set something up here, which would also be something circling in the EU, the European banks, who would also want to try to maintain some sort of triangle trade here with that. So if that was the case, then you can't just point at the military buildup in the Caribbean and say, see here, this is proof that Trump is trying to do this for Netanyahu. He's trying to overthrow Maduro and replace him with Machado so that Israel can get oil from Venezuela so that they have another alternative other than just working with the Gulf states. They have some other workaround there. And if that was the case, if Trump was helping him do that, well, it would mean he would need to have a really big military buildup in Venezuela. At the same time, if Trump was trying to prevent that, trying to block that, you would need to have a really big military buildup in and around Venezuela. So what that means is that because if your goal is to have a big military buildup in Venezuela for whatever reason, you need to have a story that you can plausibly sell to multiple different parties to accomplish that. So that you can keep Congress on side. So there might be, Ted Cruz might be just fine with this because as far as he's aware, he thinks the game is we're trying to help out my good buddy Bibi. So he's not going to chimp out about having military assets in the Caribbean. So that just using that as to illustrate the point here that when you look at a piece of evidence, you can't just immediately draw the conclusion that seems obvious from it, because part of when you're working through intelligence operations like this, you're going to have to be able to get buy-in from lots of different parties, and you're going to have to frame up what you're doing in a palatable way to all these different parties, which means the actual courses of action that you take are going to plausibly look like lots of different things. Okay, so I got off on all that because of the thing Trump blocking airspace above Venezuela. And people are like, okay, here's the big happening. Here's when it happens. And then, well, apparently there was not a big happening, or there was and we didn't hear about it. And so we'll watch and see what happens. However, all asylum claims have now been blocked. That's all asylum claims from all countries. They have shut down the asylum system completely. And they asked Trump how long they plan to have the entire asylum system shut down.
Your administration made a lot of moves throughout the last few days after we know that Afghan national is the suspected shooter of these National Guardsmen.
People that shouldn't be in our country this way.
So you announced that asylum.
And that includes Somalians and it includes plenty of others.
How long does your administration plan to pause You said that.
We don't want those people. You understand that?
I understand.
You understand it?
I understand.
Who are you with?
I'm with News Nation.
We don't even want them in the first. We simply do not want asylees in our country. Our country does not have the capacity to maintain asylees from anywhere. We don't want them. It could be a long time. She says 1 year, 2 years. He's like, maybe. It could be a long time. Dear sweet Lord baby Jesus, give this to us. Just keep it shut down.
Okay,
My name's Lindsay.
News Nation, great. Let me just tell you something. We don't want those people. Does that make sense? You know why we don't want them? Because many of them are no good, and they shouldn't be in our country.
They're no good.
The people from different countries that are not friendly to us, and countries that are out of control themselves. Countries like Somalia that have virtually no government, no military, no police. All they do is go around killing each other. Then they come into our country and tell us how to run our country. We don't want that.
We don't want them. This is, oh, yes. You don't even have a government. There was another clip somewhere else that I saw where he was talking about Somalia, and he's like, in his very Trumpian way, they don't even, you can't even call it a country. Like, they don't have a government. They can't just, they can't do normal things like a government does. He's like, duh, like, don't you know what a government is? Like, you see how we have a functioning government here? They don't even have that. Why the hell are we bringing these people into our country? They can't even maintain their own. We don't have the capacity to have them in our country. I think I have that one on here. Yeah.
They don't know what the fuck they're doing.
That's right. Now the next one is just, this is my president. This is the man I voted for. This is what I voted for.
News Nation, failing News Nation. News Nation is doing lousy, by the way. But if you want to have it released, I'll release it.
Please, can you tell us what they were looking at?
For what, releasing?
No. What part of your body was the MRI looking
I
at?
have no idea. It was just an MRI. What part of the body? It wasn't the brain because I took a cognitive test and I aced it. I got a perfect mark, which you would be incapable of doing. Goodbye, everybody. You too.
Thank you, Mr. President.
News Nation, failing.
He's had it with them. Then Christy Nome this afternoon said, I just met with the president. This is Canine Killer Christy. I just met with the president. I'm recommending a full travel ban on every damn country that's been flooding our nation with killers, leeches, and entitlement junkies. Our forefathers built this nation on blood, sweat, and the unyielding love of freedom. Not for foreign invaders to slaughter our heroes, suck dry. No, Justine. Suck dry our hard-earned tax dollars or snatch the benefits owed to Americans. We don't want them. Not one. And DHS said every damn country. They're not backing down. That's one thing you can take away from this. They aren't backing down. They're doubling down and tripling down. You can say all you want about, it's just words. If you've been listening to the Labe, there's a lot of actions to go with those words. But rhetorically speaking, they're not backing down. They're escalating right along with them. They're like, no, we're holding this territory. We're not moving off of this. So let's talk about Tim Walz. This is what's happening right now. They asked him if he stands by the claim of calling Tim Walz retarded.
In that same post, you mentioned Tim Walz, and you called him what many Americans do find an offensive word, retarded. Do you stand by that claim of calling Tim Walz retarded?
Yeah, I think there's something wrong with him. Absolutely, sure.
But you don't think that...
You have a problem with him? You know what? I think there's something wrong with him. Anybody that would do what he did, anybody that would allow those people into a state and pay billions of dollars out to Somalia. We give billions of dollars to Somalia. It's not even a country because it doesn't function like a country.
Yeah,
it's got a name, but it doesn't function like a country. Yeah, there's something wrong with Walz.
It's got a name, but it doesn't function. Like you can call it Somalia, but it's basically just like a patch of dirt with people in it. But the United States and Somalia are not the same thing. My president is making retarded fog hat legal to say again. Slutty Milk says Trump admin just fired 8 immigration judges in New York. Wyman, this is your time to shine. Wyman, you need to get your ass together. Get your shit in there. Work on it. Trust plan SAR. What did he say here? You guys talking about... I saw Ryan Dawson's name mentioned in the chat, jumped away from me. Political Catholic says Joaquin Flores and Ryan Dawson are buddies. I bet that's where the Jewish master race spirit's connection to Israel is coming from. Yeah, no, that's not what he was saying. I think Trust Plan SAR was correcting you. Yeah, he says he made the point on Crypto Riches Pod that this was a good distraction for Congress, oil for Israel. That was the point that he was making. That's like a plausible cover story essentially, and he was doing it kind of speculatively, but he was using that to draw out the larger point, which is that with a lot of these things that are happening, the administration necessarily has to have a plausible cover story for some of the things that they're doing, just so that they can try to wrangle all the different factions that they have and direct them in certain ways. And in some cases, it may be that they simply don't have the capacity to block certain actions, so they have to figure out how to incorporate these actions into their actual priorities. So they're having to adapt on the fly. This is the thing, like the whole like 5D chess thing that it's become the new conspiracy theory thing. The whole 5D chess thing is like, I don't think that it's 5D chess that's happening. I think that there's certain people who know what's happening and they're trying to navigate their way through that. And they have put plans together, but then they're having to adapt in real time with what's happening. And so I'm evaluating them based on their trajectory, their posture, their messaging, that sort of thing. I don't think that there's like some, magic Deus Ex Machina that's coming or anything like that. It's really basic. Yeah, it's just basic political maneuvering. What I'm observing is that we have people who are actually competent politically, who are maneuvering politically. And I'm watching the way those maneuvers are happening and trying to draw out the different interested parties. And there isn't something where it's not like a move can be made and then all of a sudden those people and their priorities and their motivations and their plans just disappear. Like the movie ends and then you just go on with your life or something. Every time a new thing happens, those people aren't just all of a sudden just gone or totally politically disempowered or invisible or... No, they're still there. So if there's some sort of setback, then it's not like, oh, the game's all over now and all of those people just, I don't know, were raptured. They're still there. They're still doing things. So let's see what they're doing. That's the true sting. It's not, oh, the outcome is already determined, so just stay the course and pretty soon all the good stuff is going to happen. No, it's believing in the good things that are being done that are going to bear good fruits. And really, this is what faith is just in general. It's not like it's blasphemous to have faith in good men trying to do good things. To have faith in them doesn't mean to elevate them to the status of God or to just believe irrationally that they're going to be successful. It's believing in what they're doing. And honestly, it feels like having to explain and parse that sort of thing really autistically is a sign of living in a spiritually dead culture. Like if you don't naturally see that and understand that, that's commentary on you, not me. So, this was a very interesting development of the Tim Walz story. The Minnesota Staff Fraud Reporting account, Minnesota DHS account, which it had a blue check, and I think it may have even had a gray check because it's actually Minnesota state employees, And then they posted this. It went mega viral. Then their account got permanently suspended. And then they got brought back after there was a hue and cry about it. They posted this regarding the New York Times talking about how fraud swamped Minnesota's social services system on Tim Walz's watch. This fraud story has now been forced upon the New York Times. They've had to address it now because it was breaking through a number of different vectors, and it was Chris Rufo who really made it take off. And these Minnesota employees said Tim Walz is 100% responsible for massive fraud in Minnesota. We let Tim Walz know of fraud early on, hoping for a partnership in stopping fraud. But no, we got the opposite response. Tim Walz systematically retaliated against whistleblowers using monitoring, threats, repression, and did his best to discredit fraud reports. Instead of partnership, we got the full weight of retaliation by Tim Walz, certain DFL members, and an indifferent mainstream media. It's scary, isolating, and left us wondering who we can turn to. In addition to retaliating against whistleblowers, Tim Walz disempowered the Office of the Legislative Auditor, allowing agencies to disregard their audit findings and guidance. Media and politicians supporting Tim Walz with the DFL agenda attacked whistleblowers who were trying to raise red flags on fraudulent activities. This is a cascade of systemic failures leading up to Tim Walz. Agency leaders appointed by Tim Walz willfully disregarded rules and laws to keep fraud reports quiet, even to the extent of threatening families of whistleblowers. As you read through this, it becomes undeniable that Tim Walz absolutely got this guy to go kill his political opponents. No question at all. Or either that or he's just Tim Walz is like the patsy for the actual shot caller who might be his wife or something. His wife's a psychopath. And he seems, the only thing that would give me pause about any of this is that Tim Walz seems too stupid to pull off something like this. But I really wonder what we should know about, what we could learn from the fact that Tim Walz was selected as the vice presidential candidate for Kamala Harris. This guy, who has overseen this much naked corruption, there's two plausible stories here, and I'm not fully convinced of either one just yet. One of them is they're just that stupid. They're legitimately that insulated from the real world to where they didn't this isn't the Democrat Party of the 90s or something that actually has sophisticated operators in it. They genuinely were not politically savvy enough to be like, hey, if we pick this guy, then it's going to unmask all, because nobody knew who Tim Walz was before. If you were in Minnesota, you knew, but otherwise you basically didn't know who he was. The dude was just ridden with scandals from the very moment that he entered the national public stage. He was the only person even dumber than Kamala in the Democrat Party, right? So it's weird to me. Kamala, I could understand. She was already the vice president, and I understood why they picked her when they did. But with Kamala, I could understand people doing the kind of the Machiavellian thing, and they're like, we're gonna push Kamala out there so that she completely face plants and ends her own political career and is no longer in our way. I can understand that calculus it's kind of like the Mean Girls political calculus. With Tim Walz, though, it wasn't like he was some up-and-coming star who they were going to have to deal with at some point. Yeah, he's a doofus. He's the most obvious doofus, prancing around like a gay guy, and has just the most scandal-ridden history of anybody in politics. You didn't have to do any Oppo research on him to really pull this stuff up. It was just kind of oh yeah, these are just open secrets about him, that he was deeply engaged with the Chinese Communist Party, that he's got all sorts of weird relationships with young men, that he has his military scandals, and now he's engaged in all of this fraud and stuff. This is the worst possible candidate to put up for office. Unless you're trying to burn him. But I don't know why they would be trying to do the same thing with him that they did with Kamala. Kamala, I can see, she was the vice president. You're going to have to deal with her somehow. Tim Walz, you didn't have to deal with. which makes me think that the people managing the Kamala Harris campaign that went toward actually selecting him as VP were genuinely that politically ignorant. Think of like the staffers, the millennial staffers around Biden and in the Harris campaign. I think they're genuinely just this stupid. These are his own employees. This is a cascade of systemic failures leading up to Tim Walz. Agency leaders appointed by Tim Walz willfully disregarded rules and laws to keep fraud reports quiet, even to the extent of threatening families of whistleblowers. The same leaders are not qualified for their jobs, instead getting leadership jobs via Tim Walz's friendship, so state government were left floundering. DFL lawmakers refused to acknowledge fraud and deflected any serious conversation to stop fraud. Biased mainstream media such as WCCO and NPR showed absolutely no interest in covering fraud happening in our own state. Programs, especially in behavioral health and disability services, were built without any guardrails against fraud, all in an attempt to extract more funding from legislature and the federal government. More on these programs here in a little bit. As staff, we firsthand witnessed and observed fraud happening, yet we were shut down, reassigned, and told to keep quiet, sometimes more. Leadership did not want to appear to discriminate against certain communities and were unwilling to take action, such as stopping fraud, that would have an adverse impact on their image. To date, no single agency leader has been held responsible for their role in fraud, whether it's Shireen Gandhi, Jess Giel, Jody Harpstead, Natasha Mertz, Eric Grumdahl, or others. So those are some names. It's a structure created and maintained by Tim Walz, who has created an environment of interrelated agencies and institutions, including the media, that help foster fraud through retaliation and turning a blind eye in exchange for political gain in the form of high-power agency leadership jobs or other perks. Fundamentally, Tim Walz is dishonest, lacks ethics and integrity, has poor leadership abilities, and has never taken any accountability for his role in fraud. They really want you to get the point that there's been fraud. Instead, Tim Walz deflects by blaming national politics for his own failings and distracts the public with inveterate lying. Remember, this is the guy whose wife, during the George Floyd riots, while Minnesota was burning, his wife said she went and sat out on the porch and smelled the smell of revolution. These lies include his reference of a budget surplus under his tenure. Fact is, Minnesota never had a surplus. We've been given federal ARPA funds that were conflated as surplus money, otherwise we'd be in a deficit. And those ARPA funds, which were meant to be temporary funds, were used to create more leadership positions for Tim Walz's buddies. As such, we can't fight fraud in Minnesota alone, hence why we're appealing to the federal levels of government. We need all the help we can get as Tim Walz's agency leaders have upped their brazen approach in covering up their knowledge of fraud. We're grateful to numerous solid politicians, especially the Fraud Committee and media outlets, who are trying to halt fraud. We are also grateful to other whistleblowers who are bravely stepping up. Thank you, New York Times, for bringing the plight of Minnesota to the national stage. Data Republican said, let's deport Tim Walz to China. Will Stansel. Yeah, Will Stansel. What do you have to say about it? So here's the article from Chris Rufo, written with Ryan Thorpe. He says, we have new reporting on America's Somali fraud rings, which have stolen billions in taxpayer funds and sent some to Islamist terrorists back home. The largest funder of al-Shabaab is the Minnesota taxpayer. How some of the state's welfare funds ended up in the hands of a terror group. Minnesota is drowning in fraud. Billions in taxpayer dollars have been stolen during the administration of Governor Tim Walz alone. Democratic state officials overseeing one of the most generous welfare regimes in the country are asleep at the switch, and the media, duty-bound by progressive pieties, refuse to connect the dots. In many cases, the fraud has allegedly been perpetrated by members of Minnesota's sizable Somali community. Federal counterterrorism sources confirm that millions of dollars in stolen funds have been sent back to Somalia, where they ultimately landed in the hands of the terror group al-Shabaab. As one confidential source put it, the largest funder of al-Shabaab is the Minnesota taxpayer. Our investigation shows what happens when a tribal mindset meets a bleeding heart bureaucracy, when imported clan loyalties collide with a political class too timid to offend, and when accusations of racism are cynically deployed to shield criminal behavior. The predictable result is graft with taxpayers left to foot the bill. Keith Ellison, the Attorney General, is currently now embroiled in his own scandal. What do you want, Justine?
Seems obvious. They wanted to have their cake and eat it too. Remember how certain they were of their success coming out of COVID. They were on top, and riding high. They could continue the humiliation ritual and get 2 parties in. What could go wrong?
Yeah, I do think that that's the only conclusion you can come to. That this was them thinking they'd won the political game, and it kind of just didn't matter, so they could, get our ethnically ambiguous black Indian woman and the drunk old wine aunt, and have some creepy pedophile-esque fat bald guy from Minnesota to appeal to the chuds, and this is just our miracle ticket. And they're just going to rubber stamp anything that we want. It's just, everyone's focused on the administration and the Republicans right now, but the Democrat Party as a actual formal institution is completely bankrupt. And their fundraising has almost completely dried up because these were the ways that they were fundraising. It wasn't through people actually giving them money. It wasn't like, someone was like, oh, I just love the Democrat Party, let me send them some money. There was a little bit of that, but the vast majority of it was literally just laundered taxpayer dollars and donations from billionaires. And now they've become really politically and financially toxic, even though they're being outshadowed by all of the day-to-day drama in and around the administration. If you were to design a welfare program to facilitate fraud, it would probably look a lot like Minnesota's Medicaid Housing Stabilization Services Program. The HSS program, HSS, huh? Not HHSS? The HSS program, the first of its kind in the country, was launched with a noble goal: to help seniors, addicts, the disabled, and the mentally ill secure housing. It was designed with low barriers to entry and minimal requirements for reimbursement. Nonetheless, before the program went live in 2020, officials pegged its annual estimated price tag at $2.6 million. Costs quickly spiraled out of control. In 2021, the program paid out more than $21 million in claims. It was launched a year before that with the estimated price tag of $2.6 million. In year 1, it paid out more than $21 million. In the following years, annual costs shot up to $42 million, then $74 million, then $104 million. During the first 6 months of 2025, payouts totaled $61 million. So it's on pace for $122 million. On August 1, Minnesota's Department of Human Services moved to scrap the HSS program, noting that payment to 77 housing stabilization providers have been terminated this year due to, quote, credible allegations of fraud. 77 housing stabilization providers all had credible allegations of fraud, with one program in one state. Joe Thompson, then the acting U.S. Attorney for the District of Minnesota, went even further, stating that the, quote, vast majority of the HSS program was fraudulent. On September 18, Thompson announced criminal indictments for HSS fraud against, you're going to be super surprised at these names: Mokhtar Hassan Aden, Mustafa Dayeeb Ali, Khalid Ahmed Dayeeb, Abdefita Mohammed, Christopher Adesoji Falade, Emmanuel Olawademalade Falade, Assad Ahmed Ado, and Anwar Ahmed Ado.
No, we're not doing that. You're getting called a slur. I don't know which one. Whichever one I feel like saying at the moment. You're getting called a slur.
6 of whom, according to a U.S. Attorney's Office spokesperson, are members of Minnesota's Somali community. Thompson made clear that this is just the first round of charges for HSS fraud that his office will be prosecuting. Most of these cases, unlike a lot of Medicare fraud and Medicaid fraud cases nationally, aren't just overbilling, Thompson said at a press conference announcing the indictments. These are often just purely fictitious companies, solely created to defraud the system, And that's unique in the extent to which we have that here in Minnesota. They just set up fake companies whose only purpose for existing was generating like fake invoices to be paid out by this state welfare program. They're not even trying. Thompson said many firms enrolled in the program, quote, operated out of dilapidated storefronts or rundown office buildings. The perpetrators often targeted people recently released from rehab, signing them up for Medicaid services they had no intention of providing. He noted many owners of companies engaged in HSS fraud had, quote, other companies through which they build other Medicaid programs, such as the EIDBI Autism Program, the Adult Rehabilitative Mental Health Services Program, the Integrated Community Support Program, the Community Access for Disability Inclusion Program, PCA services, and other Medicaid waivered services. What we see are schemes stacked upon schemes, draining resources meant for those in need. It feels never-ending, Thompson said. I have spent my career as a fraud prosecutor, and the depth of the fraud in Minnesota takes my breath away. On September 18, the same day that the HSS fraud charges were announced, the U.S. Attorney's Office reported that a man named Star Wars Name had become the 56th defendant to plead guilty in the $250 million Feeding Our Future fraud scheme. They literally called it Feeding Our Future. Founded in 2016, Feeding Our Future was a small Minnesota nonprofit that sponsored daycares and after-school programs to enroll in the federal child nutrition program. The organizations that Feeding Our Future sponsored were primarily owned and operated by members of Minnesota's Somali community, according to two former state officials with connections to law enforcement. These are the types of people we're talking about here. They start a nonprofit for daycares and after-school programs to enroll in the federal child nutrition program. Literally food for children. Food for needy children. This is the thing that they take over for their fraud schemes. In 2019, Feeding Our Future received $3.4 million in federal funding dispersed by the state. In the months after the COVID-19 pandemic began, however, the nonprofit rapidly increased its number of sponsored sites. Using fake meal counts, doctored attendance records, and fabricated invoices, the perpetrators of the fraud ring claimed to be serving thousands of meals a day, 7 days a week to underprivileged children. In 2021, Feeding Our Future received nearly $200 million in funding. In reality, the money was being used to fund lavish lifestyles, purchase luxury vehicles, and buy real estate in the United States, Turkey, and Kenya. In 2020, Minnesota officials raised concerns about the nonprofit's rapid expansion. In response, the group filed a lawsuit alleging racial discrimination related to outstanding site applications, noting that Feeding Our Future caters to foreign nationals.
How could you ever besmirch the good name of Horder Dinbine Dat and Dirk Der Dirkenden Dat Halaka? The outer rim doesn't work the same as the galactic core. Republican credits don't work out there. Only fools look after welfare of people off-world.
No kidding. No kidding. Holy crap. $200 million. Minnesota officials say, wow, you guys are expanding really, really fast. You have this nonprofit that's been around for less than 5 years, and you're up to 9 figures in funding. Isn't that interesting? And they say, you're racist, we're suing! That's the standard operating playbook for that cohort. When in doubt, claim racism, claim bias, says David Gaither, a former Minnesota state senator and a nonprofit leader. Even if the facts don't point to that, it allows for many folks in the middle or on the center left to stay silent. You know, I'm old enough to remember when the whole woke thing was becoming a thing, and there was a lot of people who were just like, oh, it's just like stupid teenagers in college and stuff, and they're going to grow out of it. I remember when I was a kid and I had silly ideas about how the world works, but pretty soon they're going to have to get a job and they're going to encounter the real world, and it's going to knock all that nonsense out of them. I remember these conversations when I was an adult, and I haven't been an adult that long. And now we have that That phenomenon that, oh, they're going to wait till they get in the real world and they got to go get a job and it'll get knocked right out of them. That thing that was supposed to get knocked right out of them is the cover for multi-hundred billion dollar fraud schemes. All told. Gaither believes the mainstream media, alongside Minnesota's Democratic establishment, have long turned a blind eye to fraud within the Somali community. This, in turn, allowed the problem to metastasize. The media does not want to put a light on this, Gaither said, and if you're a politician, it's a significant disadvantage for you to alienate the Somali community. If you don't win the Somali community, you can't win Minneapolis. And if you don't win Minneapolis, you can't win the state. End of story. The fraudsters have leveraged their growing political influence to cultivate close ties with Minnesota's elected officials. Several individuals involved in the Feeding Our Future scheme donated to or appeared publicly with Ilhan Omar, the Somali-born congresswoman from Minneapolis. Omar's deputy district director, Ali Issi, advocated on behalf of Feeding Our Future. Omar Fateh, a former state senator who recently ran for Minneapolis mayor, lobbied Governor Tim Walz in support of the program. And one of the accused, Abdi Nur Salah, served as a senior aide to Minneapolis Mayor Jacob Frey. So this program, this little nonprofit started in 2016, was basically embedded throughout the entire government structure of Minnesota. It took them 10 years to completely take over Minnesota. Minnesota's probably a red state, but it's governed by these people. Just days later, on September 24, U.S. Attorney Joseph Thompson announced his office's first indictment in yet another fraud case. This time, the scheme involved federally funded autism services for children. They're not autistic, they're just retarded. The accused is a woman named Asha Farhan Hassan, a member of Minnesota's Somali community, who has also been charged in the Feeding Our Future scam. It kind of bothers me the way they say their Somali community. Minnesota doesn't have a Somali community. Minnesota has some Somali invaders. She's alleged to have played a role in a $14 million fraud scheme perpetrated against Minnesota's early intensive developmental and behavioral intervention program. Think about all of the native Minnesotans who might actually have needed help through programs like this, who have been just crowded out by it. Yeah, they have a Somali occupation, a Somali tumor, infection, cancer. Hassan and her co-conspirators approached parents in the Somali community and recruited their children into autism therapy services. It didn't matter, prosecutors suggested, if a child did not have an autism diagnosis. Hassan would facilitate a fraudulent one. In a press release announcing the indictment, the U.S. Attorney's Office made clear that the alleged autism fraud scheme extended to a wide network of people. Quote, to drive up enrollment, Hassan and her partners, paid monthly cash kickback payments to the parents of children who enrolled, the release reads. These kickback payments range from approximately $300 to $1,500 per month per child. The amount of these payments was contingent on the services DHS authorized a child to receive. The higher the authorization amount, the higher the kickback. Often, parents threatened to leave and take their children to other autism centers if they did not get paid higher kickbacks. Much like with the HSS program, autism claims to Medicaid in Minnesota have skyrocketed in recent years. From $3 million in 2018 to $54 million in 2019, $77 million in 2020, $183 million in 2021, $279 million in 2022, and $399 million in 2023. Meanwhile, the number of autism providers in the state spiked from 41 to 328 over the same period, with many in the Somali community, with many in the Somali invasion, establishing their own autism treatment centers, citing the need for culturally appropriate programming. By the time the fraud scheme was exposed, 1 in 16 Somali 4-year-olds in the state had reportedly been diagnosed with autism, a rate more than triple the state average. So, on top of everything else, they've also completely foobarred, like, the medical data for an entire state. This is not an isolated scheme, Thompson, the U.S. attorney, said in a press release. From feeding our future to housing stabilization services and now autism services, these massive fraud schemes form a web that has stolen billions of dollars in taxpayer money. Each case we bring exposes another strand of this network. This is how Ilhan Omar gets elected to Congress. She's nothing but fraud. Stripping her of citizenship and deporting her, removing her from Congress, stripping her of citizenship and deporting her is merciful. What Thompson arguably hinted at but left unsaid should be obvious. This network of fraud schemes, which form a web that has stolen billions of dollars in taxpayer money, involved many members of Minnesota's Somali occupation. The Feeding Our Future, HSS, and Autism Services cases are far from the only examples. At least 28 fraud scandals have surfaced since Walz was elected governor in 2019. 28 fraud scandals in 6 years. Most of the large-scale fraud rings, according to two former FBI officials who spoke with City Journal, have been perpetrated by members of the Somali occupation. Kayesh Magan, a Somali American who had worked as a fraud investigator at the Minnesota Attorney General's office and declined an interview request, they had a Somali American working as a fraud investigator for the Minnesota Attorney General's office. Holy shitballs! Identified the problem last year. We must grapple with something that is uncomfortable and true. Nearly all of the defendants in the cases I've listed are from my community, the Somali community. Perhaps the most surprising aspect of the Somali fraud story is the scale, with total costs running into the billions of taxpayer dollars. That raises the question, what happened to all that money? The Somali fraud rings have sent huge sums in remittances or money transfers from Minnesota to Somalia. According to reports, an estimated 40% of households in Somalia get remittances from abroad. In 2023 alone, the Somali diaspora sent back $1.7 billion, more than the Somali government's budget for that year. Our investigation reveals for the first time that some of this money has been directed to an even more troubling destination, the Al-Qaeda-linked Islamic terror group Al-Shabaab. According to multiple law enforcement sources, Minnesota's Somali occupation has sent untold millions through a network of hawalas, informal clan-based money traders that have wound up in the coffers of Al-Shabaab. According to Glenn Kearns, a retired Seattle Police Department detective who spent 14 years on a federal joint terrorism task force, the Somalis ran a sophisticated money network spanning from Seattle to Minneapolis and were routing significant amounts of cash on commercial flights from the Seattle airport to the hawala networks in Somalia. One of these networks, Kearns discovered, sent $20 million abroad in a single year. The amount of money was staggering, Kearns said. Kearns' investigation eventually expanded to Minnesota, where he realized the same thing was happening. I worked on it for 5 years, Kearns said. We had sources going into the hawalas to send money. I went down to Minnesota and pulled all of their records and said, well, shit, all these Somalis sending out money are on DHS benefits. How does that make sense? We had good sources tell us this is welfare fraud. Trust Plan Star says, Trump saying she married her brother was so keno, and people will seriously tell you he doesn't know what's going on. Right. Her swaddling hijab. Kearns then investigated the hawalas in Somalia that were receiving the money transfers. He determined, primarily through human sources, that significant funds were being sent from America to Al-Shabaab networks in Somalia. Whether the money was intended for Al-Shabaab or not, Kearns said, they were taking a cut. A second former official who worked on the Minneapolis JTTF confirms the story's general structure. This former official, who requested to remain anonymous, worked on 2 terrorism cases that intersected with Minnesota's Somali occupation and has studied the flow of funds from Minnesota to Somalia. Every scrap of economic activity in the Twin Cities in America, throughout Western Europe, anywhere Somalis are concentrated, every cent that is sent back to Somalia benefits Al-Shabaab in some way, the former official said. For every dollar that is transferred from the Twin Cities back to Somalia, Al-Shabaab is taking a cut of it. A third source who spoke on condition of anonymity described the close links between the Somali American occupation in Minnesota and Islamic terror groups abroad. 10 years ago, the source was recruited as an independent contractor for a 3-letter agency investigation into the Minnesota men who had joined or attempted to join ISIS. That year, a Homeland Security Task Force report found that Minnesota led the nation in the number of Americans who had joined or attempted to join ISIS. Of the 58 Americans who had done so, nearly half came from Minnesota. Scott Johnson, who has covered these and related stories for years, attended several of those men's trials, reporting on them for City Journal. He noted that the Minnesota men, quote, gave the outward appearance of American assimilation, including being sophisticated users of social welfare benefits. The relationship is ongoing. Quote, this is a third rail conversation, but the largest funder of al-Shabaab is the Minnesota taxpayer, the third source said. There's an issue here that is real, and if there is ever an event that is traceable back to these funds or to people from this area, then this situation will take on a whole new set of optics. And I guarantee you the whole deep state intelligence apparatus has been basically setting this stuff up
They
intentionally.
stole billions of dollars from the US government and they've still got a shithole country? Imagine what we could do with a tenth of the money. Astrolabe PMC would have conquered China with that cash. Our enemies are not even autistic, just retarded.
Hell yes! That's right, Astrolabe PMC, coming up soon. Go to kingpill.com and join the Kingpill Discord, where we will make all of our secret military plans there. It's a top secret Discord, and all we do is Fed post. We're gonna plan our occupation of China in the Kingpill Discord. The Astro Legion. We are Legion. Welfare fraud is likely to become a major issue in Minnesota's 2026 elections. Governor Tim Walz, now the dude is running again, seeking a third term, has presided over a litany of scandals and faces Republican Kristen Robbins, who has made fraud prevention central to her campaign. Gaither, the former state senator, said political blowback is brewing in the state, and that as more information emerges from ongoing investigations, quote, it's a real rough place to be if you're the current administration. He added that if you talk to law enforcement officials and others close to the probes, quote, they will tell you off the record that we aren't even close to being halfway there in understanding the true scale of the fraud. The first step to solving a problem is acknowledging it. By extension, that means recognize the problem's true source. So far, Minnesota's governing class and its media establishment have failed to take that basic step. Minnesotans will have to confront the uncomfortable but unavoidable reality. Members of the Somali occupation have played a central role in the massive fraud now engulfing the North Star State. And this is part of the reason this has become a national story is because, first of all, Chris Rufo's outlet here published this story, and then Trump talked about it. And because Trump talked about it, the New York Times had to cover it. And so now it's really becoming a thing. And you know, if Trump had just posted about it, it might have been one thing. But he posted about it and said, Tim Walz is seriously retarded. Which is what forced it to be a story. This is part of his brilliance. He can force something to be a story if he wants to. He'll do it by, I don't know, calling Tim Walz seriously retarded. And then the media will just breathlessly report on it and embed it into people's skulls that Tim Walz is deeply involved in government corruption scandals. There's also now Keith Ellison, the Attorney General I mentioned a minute ago, has been there's audio now leaking of him engaging with some of these people and basically promising them quid pro quos shortly before they gave him donations. And they maxed out their available donations to him. And then, what was the other thing? He's the guy, if you remember, when he was a member of the House of Representatives, he posted a picture of himself with the Antifa, what is it called? The Antifa handbook, that one like core Antifa source document or whatever. He's the one who posted a picture of himself with it back in, I think this was like 2016 or something like that. He is still the Attorney General there in Minnesota. So after this story broke, then we get this from the Gigafag Scott Besson says at my direction, U.S. Treasury is investigating allegations that under the feckless mismanagement of the Biden administration and Governor Tim Walz, hardworking Minnesotans' tax dollars may have been diverted to the terrorist organization Al-Shabaab. Thanks to the leadership of Donald Trump, we are acting fast to ensure Americans' taxes are not funding acts of global terror. We will share our findings as our investigation continues. And Sean Duffy says it just keeps getting worse for Tim Walz. Just one day after 400 brave employees from Minnesota DHS exposed massive fraud, U.S. DOT has discovered that 1/3 of non-domiciled CDLs were issued illegally in the state. Minnesota, you're on notice. You have 30 days to fix this or lose $30 million in federal funding. So it appears to me as if the Trump administration has decided that they are going both barrels at Minnesota. You might see this as perhaps election security, managing election security, engaging in domestic regime change. Now, here's a related thing. I'm not going to play this whole video, but this is a video from the Episcopal Migration Ministries back in 2021. 23 minutes long. You can sit and watch it if you'd like. This is from Amy Mack. She says, Alert America, here is the proof. One of the 9 federal refugee contractors admitted the entire resettlement scheme on camera. This 2021 video from Episcopal Migration Ministries, one of the 9 federally funded refugee resettlement contractors, is one of the most revealing pieces of footage you will see. They were speaking openly at All Saints Church in Pasadena, assuming no one outside their activist circles were paying attention. But what they admitted is devastating. This wasn't a sermon or charity. It was a full-blown political strategy briefing filmed in a church explaining how the U.S. government and religious NGOs work together to dramatically expand resettlement pipelines, pressure Congress to change immigration laws, mobilize churches as pro-immigration activist armies, build permanent support networks for rivals, redefine refugee to include economic and climate migrants, overload the system by design, and coordinate lobbying directly with Washington. And they said all of it out loud, we're funding our own demise. So first of all, they admit they are an official U.S. government partner. Brother Chris McNabb of EMM states, quote, EMM is a ministry of the Episcopal Church and one of 9 national agencies responsible for resettling refugees in the United States in partnership with the government. This is not charity. They are federal contractors with a financial quota. More refugees equals more money. It's that simple. This is state-funded demographic policy laundered through churches. Number 2, they confess the scale. From 18,000 refugees to 4,000 Afghans per week. McNabb brags, in 2020, all 9 agencies resettled about 18,000 refugees. So all of 2020, there was about 18,000 refugees. As of 2021, when he recorded this video, he said, we are now resettling 4,000 Afghans a week. This was a mass importation pipeline, not a humanitarian drip. He openly says they had to staff up significantly because the pipeline exploded overnight. Gee, I wonder what happened between 2020 and 2021 that caused the Afghan refugee industry to explode. Number 3, they admit DHS used humanitarian parole to bypass the legal process. McNabb explains that Afghans were, quote, paroled in by the Department of Homeland Security. Remember Mayorkas? Because they did not have time to wait for the immigration system to operate. Translation, normal vetting was bypassed, the legal process was circumvented, tens of thousands were rushed in without proper screening. No, this is more like at least hundreds of thousands. Congress still hasn't adjusted their status, but the arrivals are here permanently. Well, not so permanently. Number 4, they train congregations to take in asylum seekers and parolees, not just refugees. Through the Neighbor to Neighbor program, churches are trained to provide physical and emotional support, provide transportation, help navigate legal processes, and sponsor asylum seekers and Afghan parolees. This is so fucking evil. So many, I've known the people who participate in these kinds of things. They think they're doing the right thing. They think they're just helping poor people from a war-torn part of the world. Teams of 5 to 10 church members would take over the roles official agencies would normally handle. This decentralizes the pipeline and embeds it inside of communities. Number 5, they push churches to defund ICE. Rector Mike Kinman proudly declares, quote, "We are strong advocates for the complete defunding of ICE." So you have a federally connected resettlement contractor working with the State Department using a church pulpit to demand the abolition of ICE. This isn't ministry, this is open borders political warfare. Number 6, they openly plan to expand refugee to include climate and economic migrants. When asked what happens to migrants who don't meet asylum criteria, McNabb says, quote, "We will begin seeing more and more climate refugees, more folks who come for economic reasons. We are preparing for that." They're planning the next wave, economic and climate migrants, long before Congress approves anything. Number 7, they reveal the Episcopal Church has a lobbying arm on Capitol Hill. They talk about OGR, the Office of Government Relations, and their official lobbying office in the God Box on Capitol Hill. From the stage, they instruct congregants to call Congress, pressure senators, demand the Afghan Adjustment Act, expand asylum categories, increase refugee admissions, and secure more funding for EMM. They admit that they operate 11 affiliate offices nationwide, including in red states. When asked about IRIS in Los Angeles, McNabb says that's one of our 11 affiliates. They place arrivals everywhere: Los Angeles, Seattle, Austin, Miami, and beyond. Red states are the main prize. And their interfaith branding, a manipulative facade, a left-wing coalition built to push, you guys are going to love this one, a left-wing coalition built to push anti-Western, anti-Christian, and anti-Jewish policy through religious cover. I mean, I suppose technically, if you're bringing in a bunch of Afghans, there's a good chance of that. Number 9, they tell congregations to serve undocumented immigrants too. Kenman boasts that All Saints is a sanctuary church ready to support undocumented immigrants, asylum seekers, Afghan parolees, and migrants with various statuses. This goes far beyond refugees. This is a parallel, extra-legal system. Lastly, they end by admitting the goal is a permanent embedded migration infrastructure. McNabb says this is just, quote, "the beginning of a relationship." The goal is permanent community integration, meaning once these pipelines enter your town, they never leave. This is just one of 9 federal contractors. In 1 hour at one church, they admitted their formal partnership with the U.S. government, the massive scale of Afghan importation, bypassing normal processes through parole, pushing to abolish ICE, expansion to climate and economic migrants, their professional lobbying arm, their nationwide network, and their plan for permanent demographic restructuring. If this is what they say on camera, imagine what they say off. Laura Loomer. Laura Loomer's on the job. This is from, she has her name here, just a sec.
It's been over 7 years since a church group from another state brought a...
This is Ann Corcoran from Refugee Resettlement Watch.
couple hundred refugees to the rural county where I live. I wanted to know, how could they do this? What was the governmental process that allowed the resettlement of refugees to a county ill-prepared to assimilate them? Employment opportunities were scarce. The health department was not familiar with illnesses and mental health problems of people who came from parts of the third world. The school system was not prepared to teach large numbers of students who didn't speak English, and subsidized housing was scarce.
Think about the diseases that are being brought in with all of this.
I wanted to know who gave permission for what amounted to a dropping off of needy people in our county seat. So I began my research and posted everything I learned to a blog, Refugee Resettlement Watch, so that others might know what I learned about a federal program that is 35 years old this year. In summary, I discovered that the United Nations High Commissioner for Refugees was choosing most of our refugees. It's under the influence of a powerful Muslim supremacist group called the Organization of Islamic Cooperation. Not surprisingly, a large number of U.S.-bound refugees are coming from countries with large numbers of people who hate us, including Somalia, Afghanistan, Iraq, and soon from Syria, just to name a few. The U.S. State Department then distributes the refugees to 9 major federal contractors, 6 of which are so-called religious charities, but all are largely funded from the U.S. Treasury. They're not passing the plate on Sundays for the $1 billion price tag for the resettlement. And that figure does not include the extensive welfare benefits refugees receive. The refugees are then sent to over 190 cities and towns in the U.S. where the 9 major contractors support 350 subcontractors. The refugees receive help from the subcontractor for up to 6 months, and the subcontractor then submits paperwork to admit the relatives of the first group. As the years have passed, I've become increasingly alarmed by the percentage of problematic Muslim refugees admitted and distributed around the U.S. through this program. By the way, the refugee resettlement program is not the only one used for legally admitting Muslims, but it is one of the most important. Many are forming cities within cities. Perhaps you know one where you live, where mosques are being built to consolidate, train, and promote a growing American Muslim population and its Islamic supremacist doctrine called Sharia. This process of Muslim colonization is called the Hijra. Muhammad told his followers to migrate and spread Islam in order to dominate all the lands of the world. He said they were obliged to do so, and that's exactly what they are doing now with the help and support of the UN, the U.S. State Department, and the Christian and Jewish groups assigned to seed them throughout the country. Your tax dollars pay for it all. I've written this little book, Refugee Resettlement and the Hijra to America, so that you will know what is happening to us and what we can do about it. We only need to look to a troubled Europe to see the path ahead for America if we can't stop this migration, and stop it soon. There's no reason on earth that we should have brought over 100,000 Somalis and another 100,000 Iraqi Muslims to America. Soon we will be resettling Syrian Muslims in large numbers. The UN at the moment has over 10,000 in a pipeline destined for our towns. The FBI told Congress recently that they cannot be properly screened. If you don't help counter the Hijra, we are, in my opinion, doomed. Over time, this migration will be more devastating to your children and grandchildren and to our country than any terrorist attack could ever be. Learn more at Refugee Resettlement Watch and SecureFreedom.org.
Mass deportations. I am extraordinarily grateful after spending 4 years under the administration that was actively facilitating as much of this as possible. I am deeply grateful that we now have the largest mass deportation effort that has ever been undertaken in America. But even that, it's not possible to get them out as fast as they were brought in. It's going to take so long. There's even aspects of the economy you would never even think of that are affected by all of this stuff. Look at this. The sneaker market just collapsed.
Does anyone want to explain why shoes are literally just dying right now? I own a sneaker store and we've been struggling for the last couple months. And y'all can say, oh, it's because you overprice things. And I know what you're going to say. Oh, it's a Yeezy. You're overpricing it. It's $110. Retails like 2 something. Market's like $190. I'm pricing it at $110. It's brand new. An off-white lot dunk, which you haven't been able to get for 4 years now. Used to be going for $500 to $600. Market's like $400. We have them priced at $320. A shoe that's sold out, hard to get, a SB Navy 4, it's used, but $210, that's like retail. And then you have stuff that are like Jordan 1s, like these shattered backboards that just came out. We were charging like $170 for them or something like that, which retails higher. And then we got like Lucky Greens, the Royal Toes, all these things are going for well under retail, and we have them priced under retail. For example, like a yellow ochre, which is not even a bad shoe, is going for like $90 in the store here, which is crazy. Retails like what, $170? It's definitely an interesting time in the sneaker world right now, and you'd think that people would be coming to sell us their shoes too because the market's down. They just want to get rid of some stuff, but that's not even the case. We haven't had a lot of people coming to sell to us. I mean, last week we did buy a lot of shoes, but this week we're a little slow. So if you guys are looking to sell us your shoes or come and buy some shoes because you're looking to buy the dip, then please stop by 1049 East Imperial Highway, Placentia, California. It's Hidden Realm.
One snap payment missed, the sneaker bubble pops.
Does anyone...
This guy says a large part of the economy operates this way. We transfer so much of productive people's money to the unproductive that the surplus, even after shelter, cars, obesity-sustaining food quantities, education, and healthcare, is enough to generate new and carnival-esque markets. We've got entire foreign countries' governments. We've got the sneaker economy. We've got terrorist groups all being supported by the American taxpayer. The American people are incredible. That we've been able to just keep slogging forward the way we have. The rest of the world cannot fathom the sheer level of productive capacity that America has. The unfathomable levels of parasitism that we've had while still slogging forward.
I know America is saved when the designer sneaker market has collapsed completely.
Yeah, that's a good proxy, right? Yeah, isn't that funny? Of all things, Snap gets missed once, and the sneaker market just completely collapses. Shows you exactly where all of that money is going. The white man is returning, yes. Slutty Milk says we continue to push forward under a tremendous burden. Imagine once it is lifted. Just imagine. So here's the other big hullabaloo that's happening right now. Washington Post, exclusive. Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth gave an order to kill everybody in the first strike on suspected drug boats in the Caribbean. Back September 2, that's what we're going back to. We're going back 3 months. After 2 men survived, the mission commander ordered a second strike to comply with Hegseth's instructions, according to 2 sources. So here's the thing that we're going with. So magically, this story is released about something that happened 3 months ago, right after the seditious 6 go out and say, hey, military, just FYI, remember that you can disobey orders. What? Oh, yeah, if they're illegal orders. Oh, like what? Oh, I don't know. Story drops. These ones, look, here's an example. These are illegal orders. The longer the U.S. surveillance aircraft followed the boat, the more confident intelligence analysts watching from command centers became that the 11 people on board were ferrying drugs. Defense Secretary, literally not what he's called, War Secretary Pete Hegseth gave a spoken directive, according to 2 people, with direct knowledge of the operation. The order was to kill everybody, one of them said. A missile screamed off the Trinidad coast, striking the vessel and igniting a blaze from bow to stern. For minutes, commanders watched the boat burning on a live drone feed. As the smoke cleared, they got a jolt. 2 survivors were clinging to the smoldering wreck. The Special Operations Commander overseeing the September 2 attack, the opening salvo in the Trump administration's war on suspected drug traffickers in the Western Hemisphere, ordered a second strike to comply with Hegseth's instructions. 2 people familiar with the matter said. The 2 men were blown apart in the water. Hegseth's order, which has not been previously reported, adds another dimension to the campaign against suspected drug traffickers. Some current and former U.S. officials and law of war experts, oh good, we got the law of war experts here, have said that the Pentagon's lethal campaign, which has killed more than 80 people to date, is unlawful and may expose those most directly involved to future prosecution. This is phenomenal to me that we're finding out that this lethal campaign is unlawful after living through the last 25 years. Of all the people that American munitions have been used on to kill American citizens, children, women, churches, we literally had Democratic politicians physically signing American missiles, gleefully sending them off to the Ukraine last year. And now we have a story about how double tapping narco-terrorists is unlawful. It's illegal. Hey, you're not allowed. Did you know that it's illegal for you to kill our invaders? When we're recruiting a subversive invading militia force and you kill them, that's illegal. You're not allowed to do that. The alleged traffickers pose no imminent threat of attack against the United States and are not, as the Trump administration has tried to argue, in an armed conflict with the U.S., these officials and experts say. Because there is no legitimate war between the 2 sides, killing any of the men in the boats amounts to murder, said Todd Huntley, a former military lawyer who advised Special Operations Forces for 7 years at the height of the U.S. counterterrorism campaign. Even if the U.S. were at war with the traffickers, in order to kill all the boat's occupants if they were no longer able to fight, would in essence be an order to show no quarter, which would be a war crime. They're literally saying it's a war crime to kill enemy combatants. This guy is the director of the National Security Law Program at Georgetown Law. This report is based on interviews with and accounts from 7 people with knowledge of the September 2 strike and the overall operation. Chief Pentagon spokesman Sean Parnell declined to address questions about Hegseth's order and other details of the operation, including special operations involvement. This entire narrative is completely false, he said in a statement. Ongoing operations to dismantle narco-terrorism and to protect the homeland from deadly drugs have been a resounding success. You cannot hate journalists enough. Literally the lowest form of scum in society. They're even worse than the illegals. At least some of the illegals might be good people. Just innocently. You know, they broke the law and they got to go back, but, you know, they're just like low IQ people who just want to dig ditches or something. But not with the journalists. Not a single one of them is even capable of being a good person. The elite counter-terror group, SEAL Team 6, led the attack, according to 4 people with direct knowledge of the matter, who spoke on the condition of anonymity because of the ongoing sensitive operations. Now, isn't this interesting? I do find it interesting. If this is true, and I've seen some people questioning whether or not it's true, but if it's true that SEAL Team 6 was involved in this, that, to me, is almost more interesting than anything else. Because if these are just drug traffickers, you know, these are just like guys who, they've got a boat and they got a bunch of drugs in it and they're just like trying to smuggle them into the United States. I don't know why you would need SEAL Team 6 for that. But if there's something more than just drug traffickers, then I could understand why you might have some elite teams involved. That I want to know more about. The commander overseeing the operation from Fort Bragg in North Carolina, Admiral Frank M. Mitch Bradley, told people on the secure conference call that the survivors were still legitimate targets because they could theoretically call other traffickers to retrieve them and their cargo, according to 2 people. He ordered the second strike to fulfill Hegseth's directive that everyone must be killed. So this is what they're... if we want to just understand the thing they're actually presenting as the case here, they're calling for Pete Hegseth's head on this, while acknowledging in their own narrative that he's not the one who actually gave the order. But they're tying themselves in this knot to say, well, he said you had to kill everyone, and so then this guy complied with the illegal order to kill everyone. That was the illegal order. Later in the day, President Donald Trump released a redacted 29-second surveillance drone video showing the attack. The video does not include any footage of the subsequent strike on the survivors. I will also point out that you recall who the first person was to very vocally raise hell about this issue. It isn't that interesting in retrospect. Hey, Rand. I've heard really bad stuff about the extent of the drug war infestation in Kentucky. I haven't heard you say shit about it. But you sure got real upset when this happened. This thing that they're now trying to use as a pretext to literally create sedition within the military. You were the first one on that track. Why is that, Rand? What do you got going on? What happens if we audit your lifestyle, your bank accounts, your communications? I found you disappointing to this point. But it's looking worse and worse for you. Rand Paul was the first one to jump at the thing that's now being used as the tip of the spear for the deep state trying to spark a military coup in the United States. That's who Rand Paul is. In the weeks following that attack, the Trump administration notified Congress that the U.S. was in a non-international armed conflict with designated terrorist organizations, supported by an opinion from the Justice Department's Office of Legal Counsel that asserted that because the U.S. was in an armed conflict, personnel taking part in military strikes who were following orders consistent with the laws of war would not be exposed to prosecution. I mean, this is just so fucking rich. I don't want to sound like a libertarian here, but I heard all of the stories about Obama literally drone striking American citizens. And now we're going to drag out military law experts to say that Pete Hegseth and Donald Trump are guilty of war crimes because they double tapped a boat of drug traffickers or worse in international waters? Are you serious? Just wait till you find out what the official American position with respect to The Hague is. So we're talking about war crimes. I'll get to that in a minute. That's one of the problems with the law of armed conflict. The state using force is judge, jury, and executioner, Huntley said. Yep, that's how it works. That's how war works. Since that first attack, I've had my feed, my X feed, periodically inundated with videos of Russian soldiers, even Russian civilians, old ladies, sitting there looking up at a drone, pleading with it to stop dropping grenades on them. Flying straight into their faces and exploding. Well, I listen to you faggots talk to me about how Ukraine needs more money. And you want to talk about war crimes now? Since that first attack, the Pentagon has hit at least 22 more boats, including one semi-submersible, in the Caribbean Sea and Eastern Pacific Ocean, killing another 71 alleged drug smugglers, according to officials and internal data seen by the Washington Post. Why are there 23 plus boats with 80 plus alleged drug smugglers in the Caribbean Sea in the first place? Why don't we talk about that story, Washington Post? In two social media posts Friday after the publication of this report, Hegseth appeared to acknowledge the decision, writing, "These highly effective strikes are designed to be lethal kinetic strikes," and defended the operations as lawful under both U.S. and international law. In a separate post on X from his personal account, he wrote, "We have only just begun to kill narco-terrorists." Thank you, War Secretary. And I'll just say that I'm no military law expert, but I absolutely guarantee you that the administration has its own massive passel of military lawyers who are consulting with them as they go through these different things. I know that's how it works. That they're going to be running various different actions by their own legal counsel and getting a sign-off on it. Late Friday, Senator Roger Wicker, Republican from Mississippi, and Senator Jack Reed, Democrat from Rhode Island, respectively the chairman and senior member of the Senate Armed Services Committee, issued a statement about the, quote, recent news reports and the Department of Defense's Department of War's initial response regarding alleged follow-on strikes on suspected narcotics vessels, quote, end quote, saying that they intend to conduct, quote, vigorous oversight to determine the facts related to these circumstances. This is going to be an interesting time. This part of the significance of this story is that this is going to be a way of ferreting out traitorous Republicans, because this would be an opportunity where some of them may decide to jump ship. Pardon the pun. At the time of the September 2 strike, Bradley headed Joint Special Operations Command, or JSOC, tasked with the military's most sensitive and dangerous missions, often working with counterparts in the CIA. Since then, Bradley has been promoted to lead U.S. Special Operations Command, JSOC's parent organization, which oversees elite units across the military. SEAL Team 6, known formally as Naval Special Warfare Development Group and under JSOC command, conducted the intelligence collection and targeting for this attack and several others, according to two people. The protocols were changed after the strike to emphasize rescuing suspected smugglers if they survived strikes, according to three people. It's unclear who directed the change in protocol and when exactly it took shape. In one October 16 strike in the Atlantic Ocean that killed two, another two men were captured and repatriated to Colombia and Ecuador. In a series of strikes on 4 boats in the Eastern Pacific on October 27th that killed 14 men, one apparent survivor was left to the Mexican Coast Guard to retrieve. The body was never found. In the video of the blast that killed the two survivors on September, if the video of the blast that killed the two survivors on September 2 were made public, people would be horrified, said one person who watched the live feed. I mean, frankly, I've seen the footage from Ukraine. You know, like, it's not going to be any different than that. And at the end of the day, if you released footage from any war scene, people would be horrified. The Intercept first reported that the survivors were killed in a follow-up attack. In briefing materials provided to the White House, JSOC reported that the double tap, or follow-on strike, was intended to sink the boat and remove a navigation hazard to other vessels, not to kill survivors, according to another person who saw the report, which is absolutely a valid legal justification, and it does correspond to actual practice. I know that this is a thing the Coast Guard will do. When they intercept someone, they intercept a boat, they'll pull everyone off of it, they'll unload all the drugs, and then I've seen the videos of them just unloading on the boat and forcing it to sink so you don't have wreckage just floating around out in the ocean. A similar explanation was given to lawmakers in 2 closed-door briefings, according to 2 congressional aides. That explanation has prompted frustration among some members of Congress who say they believe the Pentagon was deceptive in its description of events, the aides say. Quote, "The idea that wreckage from one small boat in a vast ocean is a hazard to marine traffic is patently absurd, and killing survivors is blatantly illegal," said Representative Seth Moulton, Democrat from Massachusetts, a Marine Corps veteran and vocal Trump critic who received a classified briefing from Pentagon officials on the strikes in late October with other members of the House Armed Services Committee. "Mark my words, it may take some time, but Americans will be prosecuted for this, either as a war crime or outright murder." The boat in the first strike was hit a total of 4 times, twice to kill the crew and twice more to sink it, 4 people familiar with the operation said. In subsequent strikes on alleged traffickers that left no survivors, the U.S. military has also fired multiple missiles to remove boats from the waterways, several people familiar with the matter said. So they actually do provide the information here advising that this is standard practice. Let's see here. Their new significant and controversial departure from U.S. counter-drug missions in the Western Hemisphere of the last several decades. Officials have said the current strikes are carried out after monitoring the movement of boats and people and target suspects only where there is a high confidence they're trafficking drugs. Speaking a day after the first strike, Hegseth told Fox News he watched the live video feed. Quote, "We knew exactly who was in that boat, we knew exactly what they were doing, and we knew exactly who they represented. And that was Tren de Aragua, a narco-terrorist organization designated by the United States trying to poison our country with illicit drugs." And here's the thing. The president, as the commander-in-chief of the armed forces and the president of the United States, has extremely broad latitude with respect to foreign policy and protecting the borders of the country, using the military. So if he's designated it a narco-terrorist organization, and the military apparatuses involved have determined that this is a military target, then there is no legal, there's really no legal pretext to counter any of this at all. Which is why any Republican members of Congress who start getting squishy on this are showing their hand. Current and former officials within the U.S. military and DEA have expressed doubt that all 11 people aboard the first vessel were complicit in trafficking. The boat in question, a go-fast vessel with 4 motors, is common in the region, would typically be manned by a small crew, perhaps one mechanic, a driver or 2, and another person focused on security, one DEA official said. More people on board means less room for drugs to sell, the official explained. He assessed that the 11 people may have been a mix of drug runners and illegally trafficked migrants. Colombia's president has accused the U.S. in at least one instance of killing an innocent fisherman. You know, this was one of the things I thought, too, is I thought that boat seemed awful small for 11 people.
But you know the administration swings its massive castle around. Not surprising the Nuremberg regime is trying to bludgeon Orange Hitler with war crimes and human rights allegations.
No kidding.
These people say terrorism is okay if the weak use it. Underdogism we lean.
Underdogism Weiland. Yes. Yeah, no kidding. Not surprising the Nuremberg regime is trying to bludgeon Orange Hitler with war crimes and human rights allegations. The irony is rich. See, I see this as you've got JSOC identifies this as guys affiliated with Tren de Aragua, and 11 people in that small of a boat makes me think, are these, like I said before, I really don't think that this has very much to do with drug trafficking per se, and it's much more about bringing military assets into the country. And they're having to go over water because the border has been shut down over land. And I'm sure that they're screening things a lot more tightly for people like coming in through airports and stuff. So what's left? Well, we have to go over water. And if you've got 11 people packed into this little boat that would normally have like 3 or 4, then my expectation is that these are probably other military assets that they're trying to smuggle into the country. And that's why they have SEAL Team 6 on it and why they're double tapping them. Dan Kovalik, an attorney for the family, as presumably of this fisherman, said he'll file for damages and injunctive relief against the U.S. government next week in coordination with the Inter-American Commission on Human Rights. There is nothing legal or moral about this. Okay, so then what would I have next here? So former U.S. military lawyers speak out. The former JAGS working group unanimously considers both the giving and the execution of these orders, if true, to constitute war crimes, murder, or both. So this is a group called the former JAGS, or Judge Advocates General, former JAGS working group. And this is what they said here. Yesterday, the Washington Post and CNN report that the Secretary of War personally issued orders to kill everybody aboard a civilian vessel suspected of narco-trafficking. The attack on 2 September 2025 targeted a vessel carrying 11 civilians and allegedly an unknown quantity of drugs. The first strike resulted in near total destruction of the vessel. However, 2 survivors were apparently observed via surveillance video, clinging to wreckage, whereupon the commander directing the operation ordered a second strike. The second strike killed both survivors. You know, it's also interesting that, like, if you're gonna start micromanaging the military, and like you have to prove to us that this vessel was actually carrying drugs. Well, how are you gonna muted? What do you mean muted? Can you not hear me? Can you guys hear me? Slutty Milk says he thinks I'm muted. Do I have audio coming through on here? Yeah, I've got audio. It says I have audio here. Okay, you can't hear me. It's just you, Slutty Milk. Like how exactly would SEAL Team 6 prove that there are drugs on this boat? Obviously, the boat doesn't exist anymore. So are they supposed to, like, reveal all of their intelligence methods? Like, the entire premise of this is totally madness. The former JAGS working group unanimously considers both the giving and the execution of these orders, if true, to constitute war crimes, murder, or both. Now, just from the top here, war crimes, murder, so it could be war crimes, it could be murder, or it could be war crimes and murder. What's the differentiation here? If it's murder, then how is it not a war crime? Or if it was a war crime, how would it not also be, like, murder wouldn't even be a valid legal category here. Murder is something that's prosecuted like who's under what what rights structure is it murder? It says if the U.S. military operation to interdict and destroy suspected narco-trafficking vessels is a non-international armed conflict, as the Trump administration suggests, orders to kill everybody, which can reasonably be regarded as an order to give no quarter and to double tap a target in order to kill survivors, are clearly illegal under international law. In short, they are war crimes. If the U.S. military operation is not an armed conflict of any kind, these orders to kill helpless civilians clinging to the wreckage of a vessel our military destroyed would subject everyone from SecDef down to the individual who pulled the trigger to prosecution under U.S. law for murder. We call upon Congress to investigate and the American people to oppose any use of the U.S. military, yada, yada, yada. This is, I just don't, the sheer audacity after spending the last 20 plus years in Afghanistan and Iraq and Syria and Libya and Somalia and Ukraine and everywhere else. Now, all of a sudden, we're really, really concerned about the rights of a particular person randomly in the water somewhere and whether this is an actual international, non-international armed conflict or like all of this stuff is just, complete and utter madness. And it's so transparent what they're trying to do. Now, this is interesting. This guy here, Dr. Brian L. Cox, an adjunct professor at Cornell, said this is an entirely unconvincing and potentially dangerous legal analysis published by these former JAGs. For present purposes, let's ignore the fact that this working group is composed of completely anonymous former JAs. Instead, here I'll focus on the most glaring deficiencies you should consider when you're evaluating whether you're convinced by their completely anonymous claims. Below, I'll start with the decisive issues first, then catch a few other significant errors. Then the analysis will close by explaining why this completely anonymous publication is potentially dangerous. Not just the statement, but the popular trend of which it is part. Spoiler alert, it involves creating division and doubt in the U.S. military by falsely claiming orders are illegal and therefore don't need to be followed. So let's start with the decisive flaw in this completely anonymous statement. Not once does it use or consider the term military objective. Here's the most relevant provision of the statement on this topic. Quote, in essence, the Geneva Conventions and other long-standing international maritime laws prohibit U.S. forces from doing anything to survivors of a military attack that destroys the vessel or aircraft carrying them other than rescuing them. They certainly prohibit U.S. forces from killing them. End quote. Seems fairly reasonable at first glance, no? But what does it do to your assessment if you substitute the word disables for destroys? Because that's what the WAPO story claims, also from completely anonymous sources. Here's a quote from the news article. Admiral Mitch Bradley reportedly directed the follow-up attack since, quote, the survivors were still legitimate targets and because they could theoretically call other traffickers to retrieve them and their cargo. More about the survivors in a second. About the boat, the facts as reported indicate it wasn't destroyed in the initial attack, but was rather disabled. This means these anonymous former JAs have mischaracterized the status of the boat, and this completely flips the conclusion regarding whether the order, more about that later too, was lawful. Here's why. If the boat were destroyed, there would be nothing serviceable left of it. But if it's disabled, that is, if the decision maker believed it could still be used to call other narco traffickers to retrieve their cargo, the boat still qualifies as a military objective. And military objectives can be intentionally attacked. That begs the question. What is the definition of a military objective? I'm glad you asked because the War Department doctrine aligns perfectly with the widely recognized conventional definition established in a treaty the U.S. hasn't ratified. That is, a military objective is, quote, any object which by its nature, location, purpose, or use make an effective contribution to military action and whose total or partial destruction, capture, or neutralization, in the circumstances ruling at the time, offers a definite military advantage. He's got a screenshot of it, sourced from the DoD Law of War Manual. So does a destroyed boat meet that definition? Probably not. But what about a disabled boat? Well, if the commander does believe it can call for assistance and allow it to continue its mission, then it is, by definition, an object which by its use makes an effective contribution. In short, according to the factual scenario reported by the WAPO story, the boat still qualified as a military objective after the initial attack, and therefore the second strike was not a war crime, as the statement claims. Now, if you read the statement very closely, guess how many times you'll see the term military objective? That's right, none. And do you think there's a provision of the Geneva Conventions and other long-standing international maritime laws prohibit U.S. forces that would criminalize an attack directed against a military objective? That's right, no, except maybe the LOAC proportionality rule, which I'll address below. There are so many other mistakes and inaccuracies in the statement that would take quite a longer post to address them all, and to be honest, that was my plan when I first read the statement. Maybe I'll write up a comprehensive compendium of the errors in the statement at some point, but unfortunately for now it's late and I'm pretty beat, yada yada yada. What follows here is just the highlights. Hors de combat. The statement correctly notes that attacks cannot be directed against persons who are hors de combat, which basically means they're out of the fight due to sickness, injury, wounds, or detention. Because I'm just hitting the highlights here, I'm not going to split hairs regarding whether combatants and civilians taking direct part in hostilities could qualify as hors de combat, and for the latter, under what conditions. Let's just assume that civilian DPH, as the narco-traffickers were designated by State Department and Department of War, can in fact so qualify when they're shipwrecked. Fine. And let's concede that passengers formerly on a boat, whatever their combatant status, that has been destroyed, are incapacitated due to shipwreck and therefore are hors de combat. They're not shipwrecked if they're on a military objective. Their watercraft is still targetable, even if they themselves are completely incapacitated due to wounds from the first attack. Unlikely, since the commander believed they were capable of calling for enforcements. Think about this in the context of, like, like military, like naval combat. You know, we had like a strafing run that went by on this ship. And there's a bunch of dead people on the ship now. So now we actually can't sink the ship because there are dead bodies on it. That's the necessary conclusion from this premise. If the suspected narco traffickers are present on a military objective, and if they are unable to defend themselves due to injury or wounds, let's go ahead and call them hors de combat for the sake of argument. They're still on a military objective. So the expected incidental damage of injuring or killing, likely the latter, them in a second strike would need to be assessed along with the concrete and direct military advantage gained from actually completely destroying the boat. If the former, expected incidental damage, were excessive in relation to the latter, anticipated military advantage, then the act would violate the Loac proportionality rule. And guess what else is missing from the analysis in the statement? That's right, whether the boat qualified as a military objective, as reported it did, and if so, whether the two survivors were themselves incapacitated, and if so, whether the attack would still be lawful nonetheless pursuant to the Loac proportionality rule. No quarter. To be honest, I find this narrative to be just completely bizarre. Yes, ordering subordinates to accept no quarter, that is, to take no prisoners, is in and of itself a war crime, even if the subordinates don't actually carry out the order. Fun fact, no quarter is the only order that in itself is a war crime. And I would say, leaving aside the fact that war crimes themselves is just a gay category. Fake and gay. But it's simply bizarre that we even get this narrative from the WAPO story as reported. Here's the relevant text from that article. Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth gave a spoken directive according to two people with direct knowledge of the operation. The order was to kill everybody, one of them said. So the kill everybody order was apparently given before the operation. There's a timing issue that just doesn't add up here regarding the no quarter claim. Let's say a commander orders subordinates to kill everybody as they assault an enemy trench. That can and probably should be reasonably interpreted as an order to direct attacks against adversarial combatants and or civilians DPH. If the subordinate encounters a fighter who is hors de combat, doesn't it seem likely that she or he will consider that, in accordance with their training, to be an exception to the order to kill everyone? If so, people claiming, as the statement does, the order to kill everybody can reasonably regard it as an order to give no quarter are wrong for at least two major reasons. First, they're substituting their own subjective understanding of the order for the commanders and or the subordinates. Context and interpretation matter, since an order to kill everybody may not be intended or received as a directive to give no quarter. Secondly, they're assuming this characterization of the order is verbatim as expressed by Pete Hegseth. As the letter begins, the Secretary of Defense personally issued orders to kill everybody, emphasis added. But that's not necessarily consistent with what the WAPO story said. Here's the pertinent quote directly from the news article again. The order was to kill everybody, one of them said. Is this anonymous source conveying an accurate and verbatim recollection of SecWar's order? That's what the anonymous former JAGs claim, and nearly every other media story and or statement from a sitting member of Congress treats it the same. But what if this anonymous source is paraphrasing, or not presenting an accurate description of SecWar's order? Doesn't this change how we should all consider the supposed order to take no quarter? As Kurt Schlichter suggested in a tweet I reposted 2 down for this on my timeline, this is anonymous double hearsay. Is this really the standard by which we're going to denounce the sitting fucking Secretary of War of the United States of America as a war criminal? If that's enough for you, that says a lot more about you than it does about Pete Hegseth, and that goes for this group of anonymous former JAs who posted this statement. And then pending IHL. Okay, I was going to save this one for a later date, but the international law nerd in me just can't. There's more to say about this later, but there is absolutely no such thing as pending IHL. The statement makes this claim because the authors really badly want to apply the text of Additional Protocol 2, 1977, to the 1949 Geneva Conventions, even though the U.S. hasn't ratified this treaty. Though they express that now's the time. Can you imagine a judge advocate standing in front of a commander and giving advice that sounds something like this? Well, ma'am, if we had ratified AP2, then you would need to do this. And I really want us to ratify AP2. So even though we haven't, my advice to you is that you have a legal obligation to take this action because AP2 would require it if we did ratify the treaty as we should. Bonkers, right? And yet that's exactly what these anonymous former JAs are telling our service members by citing to a treaty we haven't yet, read, won't, ratify. More about our service members when we get the duty not to obey unlawful orders. Armed conflict versus law enforcement. The statement presents an analysis in the alternative. What if this is an armed conflict such that LOAC does apply, and another if it's not an armed conflict such that human rights law applies. This is an interesting subject academically, but for operators, it's a moot point. The Department of State and Department of War has determined this is a non-international armed conflict, meaning for our operators, LOAC applies. There's more to say on this subject at a later date, but for now I'll leave it there since the big takeaway here is the dangerous trend of consistently re-emphasizing that unlawful orders don't need to be followed. And that's kind of the point here. Like, if they have determined that it is a non-international armed conflict, the Department of State and the Department of War are the bodies that could make that determination. So if they've made that determination, then like it's true by the fact that it's true. Because they're the bodies that can make that determination. And it just ends there. Yeah, Ryan Isaac, WAPO is trying to create a problem for Trump. The details are irrelevant to them. And it's really, really thin. Now, the whole Ukrainian phone call that they impeached him over was also really, really thin. But, what did I have next here? Stephen Miller here. Not that Stephen Miller. The other Stephen Miller. Said if you've been paying attention to this, what they're doing is going from don't follow illegal orders to we will decide which orders are illegal when we're back in charge, so you better just not follow any of Trump's orders or else you might be prosecuted. Another fun barrier broken by the norms crowd. This is quite literally what it is. This is how you gum up the military. Now, why in December of 2025 do they want to gum up the functioning of the military? I can't imagine that they've just cast about for some justification for impeaching Trump or attacking him politically and have just settled on something that is, that is this. Like they decided gumming up the processes of the military is the way that we need to take him down. Much more likely to me is that they are anticipating that they may want or need to use the military. Sorry, I couldn't get that sentence out. They're trying to front run some use of the military. I think that's the only thing that makes sense to me. They want to hamstring Donald Trump's control over the military because they're anticipating something whereby he may need to use the military. And then being able to basically effectuate a military coup would be downstream from that. Because otherwise, if you're pretty confident in your ability to take back the midterms, take back the House in the midterms, and then you've got Republican senators bought off and you're going to be able to do a whole impeachment thing and just grind everything to a halt and then win the presidency in 2028 and then prosecute all these people. You don't start laying the groundwork for a military coup. You start laying the groundwork for a military coup if you don't have another alternative. Where you can't wait till the midterms. You can't wait till 2028. So they're either trying to prevent Trump from using the military, or they're trying to use the military against Trump. Those would be the only reasons for this, or both, I suppose. And this bald penis-looking nigger, Mark Kelly, is front and center in all of this. He was a guy who was rumored to be in the running for the replacement of Biden. And from the sound of it, he was Obama's choice. I think he's the guy that Obama wanted, and Obama wound up getting stuck with, there was a period of time there where there was quite a hullabaloo going on behind the scenes. And it's pretty clear that one segment of the Democratic Party power brokers got sidelined in favor of another. And he was a guy who was very much rumored for that. He's from a swing state, Minnesota, former military guy, astronaut, white guy, middle-aged. He would have been a much more compelling candidate than Kamala Harris. He's a much more serious person than she is. And he's now front and center with this whole Seditious Six thing. And he's got some other connections we'll get to here in just a minute. But now he's the one making all the rounds. There's him and there's Alyssa Slotkin. But it's especially him. And I think that they're probably setting him up for running in 2028.
You can certainly go to the judge, advocate generals, the lawyers, and have a discussion about it. If you don't have time, you just say simply, I'm not going to do that. That's against the law.
It puts a lot of burden on the troops to make a decision in real time.
It puts a tremendous amount of burden on officers in the military, but that is their responsibility. And they can figure out, a reasonable person can tell something that is legal and something that is illegal.
So would you refuse these specific orders to strike drug boats if you were still in uniform?
Well, the difference between the initial strike and what is being reported, as a second strike, and those things are different. I think this administration has tied themselves in knots, the explanations that we have received.
Notice how deftly he kind of skips around that. She asks him explicitly, would you obey these orders? And he distances it from himself. He's like, oh, it was, what's being reported, I don't know. There was like the first strike and the second strike, and these are separate things. And he doesn't actually answer the question. He distances himself from it, sidesteps it, and goes right back into politicking.
Things are different. I think this administration has tied themselves in knots, the explanations that we have received on how this is all legal. And I was saying weeks ago, my concern is with the service members, that we're gonna put these individuals in a really, really tough decision, in a tough place. And they may find out, down the road that they did something that is illegal. It is not fair to them. That's why we need presidents and Secretary of Defense who understand the Constitution, who understand the rule of law, and have more respect for the Constitution and the country and service members than the whims of a president.
This is a guy who's running for president. That's what he's doing. He's starting his campaign. Andrew Colvett from TPUSA says Senator Mark Kelly is now basically threatening service members to defy President Trump's orders or else face potential prosecutions when Democrats are back in power. This is seeding the ground for a third world-style military seizure of civil authority. And here's here's more of his rhetoric on this.
This guy is so unqualified for the job.
Oh, hold on.
I mean, think about this. He runs around on a stage talking about lethality and warrior ethos and killing people. We have the most competent, capable military this planet has ever seen.
Can you imagine having a Secretary of War who talks about lethality and killing people? Can you comprehend that?
By far. That's not the message that needs to come from the Secretary of Defense. The message should be about what's our mission and accountability.
Our mission is killing people.
And the rule of law and training. And let me make sure you're equipped to do really hard jobs. Let me give you all the tools you need to do something that often is an impossible mission. And instead, he runs around on a stage like he's a 12-year-old playing Army. And it is ridiculous. It is embarrassing. And I can't imagine what our allies think of looking at...
I don't give a shit what our allies think. Our allies have third world countries. Our allies are third world countries. That's the absolute state of them. I could care less what they think.
That guy in this job, one of the most important jobs in our country. In my view, after the President of the United States, it is the next most important job. He is in the National Command Authority for Nuclear Weapons. And last night...
The last guy was this big, dopey, hulking, ape-like dude that walked around with this big face mask on. You're saying he was like the second most important person in government leadership?
He's putting out on the internet turtles with rocket-propelled grenades.
This is why I played this clip.
We hate you anyways. Who cares what we think?
I love you too, Justine. From the third world country to the north. This is why I wanted to play this clip.
Nuclear weapons. And last night, he's putting out on the internet turtles with rocket-propelled grenades. Have you seen this? This is the Secretary of Defense. This is not a serious person. He should have been fired after Signalgate. And then every single day after that.
Oh, of course, this is what he's talking about. Pete Hegseth, for your Christmas wish list. Franklin targets narco-terrorists. God, I love the time we live. Oh, that's my Secretary of War. Interestingly, Pete Hegseth is from Minnesota. There's a interesting connection there. So then Caroline Leavitt issued an official statement kind of clarifying some of the story here earlier today.
Secretary Hegseth had denied that second strike, the reported second strike on an alleged drug boat on September 2nd, the secretary said to the president that didn't happen. But to clarify, I just wanted you to clear this up. In his social media post, Secretary Hegseth didn't go into details about that strike. He just said U.S. operations in the area were lawful, and he said that the story and media reports were fabricated. So to be clear, does the administration deny that second strike happened, or did it happen and the administration denies that Secretary Hegseth gave the order?
The latter is true, Abe, and I have a statement to read for you here. President Trump.
So they're saying that there was, this is the White House's official position here is that there was a second strike, but that Pete Hegseth is not the one who ordered that second strike.
And Secretary Hegseth have made it clear that presidentially designated narco-terrorist groups are subject to lethal targeting in accordance with the laws of war. With respect to the strikes in question on September 2nd, Secretary Hegseth authorized Admiral Bradley to conduct these kinetic strikes. Admiral Bradley worked well within his authority and the law, directing the engagement to ensure the boat was destroyed and the threat to the United States of America was eliminated. And I would just add one more point to remind the American public why these lethal strikes are taking place. Because this administration has designated these narco-terrorists as foreign terrorist organizations. The president has a right to take them out if they are threatening the United States of America and if they are bringing illegal narcotics that are killing our citizens at a record rate, which is what they are doing. And under the previous administration, there was enough fentanyl trafficked into our country to kill every American man, woman, and child many times over. And so that's why you've seen a drastic difference in this administration's policy with respect to the last, and it's one of the many reasons the American public reelected this president and support this Secretary of War in conducting these strikes.
You know, it's interesting that they aren't even attempting to make the case that it's not a narco-terrorist group. At no point really have they ever tried to make this case that, like, the president has designated Tren de Aragua a narco-terrorist group and these other cartel organizations. They've designated them foreign combatants, and they're not trying to take that on legally at all. They're like taking this even weirder argument that, like, yeah, they're actually narco-terrorist groups, but, you know, and they might say, oh, they're actually just like fishing vessels and stuff, but they're not even trying to touch that legally, which I think is interesting, given how thin the thinness of the arguments they are willing to make.
To clarify, Admiral Bradley was the one who gave that order for a second strike.
And he was well within his authority to do so.
And a separate question, the president several days ago said it was his intention to pardon the former president of Honduras, who was a convicted drug trafficker. And yesterday on Air Force One, the president said that if someone sells drugs in that country, that doesn't mean you arrest the president and put him in jail for the rest of his life.
She's pissed.
How is that different than what the administration is accusing Venezuela's Nicolas Maduro of?
You're cherry-picking the president's statement a little bit yesterday, as he also said yesterday the people of Honduras have highlighted to him how...
It's interesting, this guy, Juan Orlando Hernandez is his name, this former president of Honduras, that he I think he did pardon him, or at least he talked about wanting to. I'm pretty sure he did pardon him. And that's very interesting because he definitely was deeply involved in all of this. And so if they're pardoning him, I wonder what sorts of things he's giving up. I wonder what sorts of names and dates and sorts of things he's willing to, because I really highly doubt he's pardoning him for nothing. He's getting something out of pardoning him. And if he was there he's been in positions of leadership in Honduras for decades. So he knows a lot of this stuff on a very personal basis. So I'm sure there's probably specific policymakers and stuff that he could dish on. So it'll be interesting to see if something comes of that. Then Pete Hegseth this afternoon tweeted this. He said, "Let's make one thing crystal clear. Admiral Mitch Bradley is an American hero, a true professional, and has my 100% support. I stand by him in the combat decisions he's made on the September 2 mission and all others since. America's fortunate to have such men protecting us. When this Department of War says we have the back of our warriors, we mean it." Now, this is a very interesting thing regarding the Hague. From Eigenrobot, he says, "Not sure who needs to hear this, but a U.S. president has perpetually standing authority to conquer the Netherlands in response to the ICC getting uppity." This here, because Mike Madrid here said, "Not sure who needs to hear this, but a U.S. president cannot pardon someone being charged for war crimes at the Hague." Oh, yes, he could do much more than that. Look at this. The American Service Members Protection Act, known informally as the Hague Invasion Act, enacted August 2, 2002, is a United States federal law described as, quote, "a bill to protect United States military personnel and other elected and appointed officials of the United States government against criminal prosecution by an international criminal court to which the United States is not party," end quote. The text of the act has been codified as Subchapter 2 of Chapter 81 of Title 2 United States Code. The act gives the president power to use, quote, "all means necessary and appropriate to bring about the release of any U.S. or allied personnel being detained or imprisoned by, on behalf of, or at the request of the International Criminal Court." So formally, the formal legal position for the United States government is that not just U.S. personnel, but any allied personnel being detained or imprisoned by, on behalf of, or at the request of the International Criminal Court, if that is happening at all, the president has the legal right to use, what did it say? All means necessary and appropriate to bring about the release of any U.S. personnel or any personnel from any allies. So, functionally, at any point that he wants, the President of the United States can order a full invasion of the Netherlands and the burning down of the Hague, if that's what it takes, to bring about the release of any U.S. or allied personnel detained or imprisoned by and behalf of or at the request of the International Criminal Court. Don't want trouble, don't start trouble. He said, "It's actually crazy." Someone said Kamala will happily hand him over. He said, "It's actually crazier than this. Even if Kamala wanted to hand over her enemies, it would be incredibly foolish for the International Criminal Court to accept them, because the next Republican president would have carte blanche to conduct the easiest war in U.S. history." God, yes. I just says, "God, please let this happen in my lifetime." We're going to drone the Hague. My wife says, "Suck a dick, clog nigs." Clog nigs. The clog nigs are going to get nuked. Can we invade the Hague on behalf of allies? Yes, absolutely. Covered allied persons. It's right there. The authority of subsection A shall extend to the following persons: covered United States persons, covered allied persons, or individuals detained or imprisoned for official actions taken while the individual was a covered United States person or a covered allied person, and in the case of a covered allied person, upon the request of such government. So what this means is that Donald Trump could actually invade the Netherlands if they arrest Bibi Netanyahu. man. I love this. Someone even said it. This law is for U.S. military personnel or elected officials, not Benjamin Netanyahu. It literally is for Bibi. Oh, man. Isn't that great, though? So essentially, the International Criminal Court has no standing authority over the United States if the president doesn't want him to. Tom Homan was asked, are you worried that Democrats are going to prosecute you after this is all over? Because this is obviously what they're trying to set up. They're looking to send the administration and military personnel into, basically it's like a guessing game. Am I going to be prosecuted or not after this? Here's what Tom Homan has to say.
Good. You heard the top of the show. Democrats are chomping at the bit. They want to go after Hegseth for war crimes. Now they're potentially targeting rank and file soldiers for just obeying orders. Are you worried, Tom, that they're going to target you with prosecution after this is all over?
Oh, they already said they're going to, so come get some.
Come get some!
I'm not going to let them forget what they did the last 4 years. 500,000 children were separated from their families and smuggled across this border. 250,000 Americans died from drug overdoses that came across that border. And what's President Trump done? He gave us the most secure border in history of this nation, which means sex trafficking plummeted. No unsuspected terrorists coming across the borders plummeted. Criminal cartels are going broke. He's record deportation. Every promise he's made to the American people, he's getting. And let's not forget, we're going to find every one of these people that weren't vetted, and we're going to make sure that they are properly vetted, and if not, they're going home. President Trump's going to make this country safe again. He made that promise. We're going to make sure that he keeps that promise.
All right, Mr. Homan, keep up the great work.
Tom Homan is one of our president's greatest truthsters. President has delivered on his promises. You can tell that the man really genuinely cares about these kids, about finding them. Also, regarding Senator Mark Kelly, did you know that he has a twin brother? Look at this. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky appointed Mark Kelly's twin brother, Scott Kelly, as an ambassador for Ukraine's official fundraising platform. Yes. Mark Kelly's brother is an ambassador for Ukraine's official fundraising platform, United 24, specifically to lead the medical aid initiative. Oh, and also, Mark Kelly took CCP-controlled Tencent money for his balloon company, hid it in a blind trust, then joined the Seditious Six to tell troops to defy Trump. Tencent, a Chinese Communist Party-controlled company, pumped money into Mark Kelly's stratospheric balloon startup, Worldview, in 2013 and 2016. Kelly quietly moved the Chinese investment into a secretive blind trust when he ran for Senate. Now he's part of the Seditious Six, telling U.S. troops to ignore President Trump's lawful orders and warning they could be prosecuted once Democrats are back in control. Bald penis-looking nigger, as Heinz has dubbed him. My wife says he's ugly AF after spending so much time in space radiation. Yeah. That's why he's such a bald penis-looking nigger. How many times can I say that? Now, Sundance here has a very interesting take on all of the happenings at the moment right now. He says, President Trump is drawing Western media into a controlled geography. Justine, what do you want?
So this is all in the service of Trump getting to sweep Bibi off his feet while he's on trial at The Hague? Very romantic. And people see chivalry is dead. It's just reserved for the chicletified geopolitical order and its most eligible lords. Splish.
Oh, that's splish. Ah! Let's give you one of these.
No thanks, irrelevant pervert. What a fag. What is that? Well, she's obviously dark.
President Trump is drawing Western media into a controlled geography. The media are rushing into the area to attack him and his radical domestic policies on tariffs, immigration, deportation, citizenship baselines, Biden pardons, Venezuela drug boats, etc. However, Trump isn't really in this valley. Instead, he's way over there working on something far more consequential. And this article over on the conservative treehouse. Let me zoom this in a little. No intel intercepts. Hungarian Prime Minister Viktor Orban meets with Russian President Vladimir Putin. Hungarian Prime Minister Viktor Orban not only represents a friendly European voice to the objectives of the Trump administration, but also Orban is a close personal friend of President Trump both in and out of office. Trump and Orban have long held a very close relationship, including friendship with the family of First Lady Melania Trump. They are all very close, Shinzo Abe type close, both from the White House and time in Mar-a-Lago. On November 7, 2025, Prime Minister Viktor Orban again visited President Trump in the White House, including dinner with the Trump cabinet. Then, word of the Ukraine corruption scandal broke. A week following the White House visit, November 14, Prime Minister Orban said, quote, "The golden illusion of Ukraine is falling apart. A wartime mafia network with countless ties to President Zelensky has been exposed. The energy minister has already resigned. The main suspect has fled the country. This is the chaos into which the Brusselian elite want to pour European taxpayers' money, where whatever isn't shot off on the front lines ends up in the pockets of the war mafia. Madness. Thank you, but we want no part of this." End quote. The direct and non-pretending remarks from Viktor Orban highlighted a sense of the issue carried by a majority of the common-sense people around Russia, Europe, America, and the world in general. However, soon thereafter, as President Trump, Steve Witkoff, and Marco Rubio were delivering deliberate terms to finally end the conflict, the Western Intelligence Network leaked an intercepted phone call between Witkoff and Putin's senior foreign policy advisor, Ushakov. The intelligence apparatus, likely originating from the UK, purposefully wanted to disrupt all this peaceful resolution effort. The conflict has both benefactors and beneficiaries that do not want peace, both here and in Europe. 1 week later, Vladimir Putin then gives a stunningly detailed and pragmatic speech outlining his perspective on the status of the issues from the sidelines of an economic cooperation summit in Kyrgyzstan. Either Russia wins militarily, or Ukraine/Europe/NATO moves forward on a diplomatic solution that delivers the same outcome. It matters not from the perspective of the Russian Federation, which approach to the same outcome is selected by those who control Ukraine. Putin also notes that the Ushakov-Witkoff intel leak is intended to undermine the negotiated settlement strategy, and, as a consequence, he is not going to engage himself in the rabbit holes of Western intelligence manipulation. It was interesting. One of the things that Putin said about it was basically like, if you guys are going to try to eavesdrop and then leak information about it, you should at least be competent and be able to cover your tracks or something. He basically just called him a bunch of he was like, we know exactly who did it. It was really obvious. It's obvious what you guys are doing. You should get your shit together. The day after President Putin returns to Moscow, Hungarian Prime Minister Viktor Orban arrives. The European leaders were furious at the unexpected visit by Prime Minister Orban to Moscow for a bilateral discussion with President Vladimir Putin. No one knew the meeting was going to take place. Observing pearls were clutched. It doesn't take a geopolitical weed walker to see the basic background. Orban represents another channel directly from President Trump and the peace allies in Eastern Europe to President Putin. Again, Orban offers to host the next meeting between President Trump and President Putin, which hopefully will include President Zelensky in the coming terms. Participating in the meeting from the Russian side were Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov, Deputy Prime Minister Alexander Novak, and Presidential aide Yuri Ushakov. Representing Hungary were Minister of Foreign Affairs and Trade Peter Zijardo, Minister of Construction and Transport János Lazar, and Chief National Security Advisor to the Prime Minister of Hungary Marcel Biro. Quoting from Putin, "Mr. Prime Minister, colleagues, allow me to extend a very warm welcome to you here in Moscow. It's a great pleasure to see you in person. We are in regular contact by phone and our teams are in constant communication. I am particularly pleased that, despite the undoubted challenges of the present time, our relationship remains strong and continues to move forward. Ours is a relationship with a long and complex history, but today it is built on the strongest foundation of the best in our shared past, as well as on pragmatism, a pragmatic approach to our bilateral ties. We have known each other for many years, and I know you first and foremost as a steadfast champion of Hungary's interests and the Hungarian people." Night Karate Man, thanks for dropping in. While our views on certain international issues may not always align, we have developed a relationship where we can speak with complete frankness and address any issues. This open dialogue allows us not only to address them, but also to work together on finding solutions. We are aware of your balanced position on the situation in Ukraine. Turning to our bilateral relations, I must note with regret that last year we saw a decline in mutual trade. This was primarily due to external restrictions, but the scale of the decrease, 23%, is nonetheless significant. That said, the outlook is promising. This year, we've already seen a modest recovery with growth of over 7%. Our energy cooperation, of course, remains a cornerstone of our partnership, and there are several specific matters that we need to address. Once again, we're delighted to have you with us. Welcome. And then Orban's response. Mr. President, first of all, I would like to thank you for the opportunity to hold talks with you here today. This is the 14th time I've met with you in the capacity of Prime Minister. I believe that we have accomplished a great deal, considering the current historical moment, for the development of interaction between our nations, and I sincerely hope that we will be able to achieve even more. 14, huh? What did he mean by this? As Mr. President knows, we are pursuing a sovereign foreign policy. We've been consistent in our policy towards Russia. We are cooperating in vital spheres and have not yielded to external pressure. We have not terminated our interaction in any of these vital spheres. I would like to emphasize that stable Russian energy deliveries in the past, today, and in the future are the foundation of Hungary's energy security. We highly value the stability and predictability of Russian energy deliveries. Hungary is interested in maintaining an energy dialogue with your country, and today I would like to discuss this block of issues in detail. Ukraine is a neighbor of Hungary, which is why Hungary fully feels the effects of the Ukrainian conflict, including a considerable economic impact because economic cooperation is being hindered by the hostilities. This is true both for Europe and for us. I would also like to reiterate what I told you during our previous meeting. Hungary is interested in peace, and we sincerely hope that the peace initiatives recently made public will eventually bring about peace. Mr. President, our meeting today offers an opportunity to reaffirm that Hungary is ready to provide a venue for such negotiations and to assist in the successful conclusion of that process. I would like to thank you once again for meeting with us. And Putin responded, "Thank you for your reaction to the possibility of my meeting with the U.S. President in your country." The idea was put forward by Donald, who said, "We have good relations with Hungary, and both you and I have good relations with Viktor, so I suggest this option." We accepted it with pleasure, of course. If there comes a moment in our negotiations when we will use Budapest as the venue, I would be glad to do so. I would like to thank you for your readiness to provide assistance. Now back to Sundance. He says, now many people will see this as yet another foreign policy distraction for President Trump. However, that could not be more incorrect. President Trump is in the process of resetting the Western economic and trade system to remove the tentacles of the globalist left. A strategic partnership with Russia completely upends the global alliance and financial control system. There is nothing in the world of geopolitical networks, banking, finance, trade, or military, more comprehensively disruptive to the current order of things than the possibility of Russia and the largest, most powerful and anchoring country in the West forming an alliance. Nothing else even comes close. If President Trump can pull this off, everything changes. Everything. The main globalist, European, and London-based defense against this looming nationalistic alliance is continued conflict with Russia. I think Trump can pull it off. No, this is Sundance from Conservative Treehouse. This is him talking. I think only President Donald Trump is capable of destroying the old system and introducing a new dawn of nationalistic prosperity. However, in order to get this level of tectonic change delivered, President Trump needs to blitz the media with shiny things, distracting things, and things they can attack him with. President Trump is drawing Western media into a controlled geography. The media are rushing into the area to attack him and his radical domestic policies on tariffs, immigration, deportation, citizenship baselines, Biden pardons, Venezuela drug boats, etc. However, Trump isn't really in this valley. Instead, he's way over there working on something far more consequential. I believe President Putin is willing to give Trump every opportunity for success, and I believe Viktor Orban was there to talk to him about it. Right, Trust Plan Sar, exactly what our sphere has been saying. Isn't that wild? So true, Mr. Sundance. Now, some good insight here from America First Insight. Sean Davis, this is about a week ago, Sean Davis said, are House Republicans going to start impeaching corrupt and lawless judges or not? Sadly, I think we all know the answer. Sure would be nice if GOP congressional leaders weren't cowards.
I have 88 theories as to what he meant. Most of them involve certain political theories popular in the recent past and a shared interest in the steppe peoples of the migration period. The grand strategy gamer victory will be total. The tumblerinas will die.
Down with the tumblerinas! They have no idea what's coming for them. Speaking of the steppe peoples, you'll like a certain podcast that should be dropping here before too long, where the steppe peoples were discussed. Stay tuned for that. So then America First Insight responds to Sean Davis and says, once again, purely performative actions. Doubt impeaching federal judges would get more than 40 votes in the Senate. And this is, I think, something that's useful to keep in mind, because you get a lot of the doomer types, and I like Sean Davis. I don't think he's necessarily much of a doomer, but you get the doomer types who are constantly demanding things like impeaching judges. But you got to realize that impeaching federal judges just simply is not on the political menu, at the very least before the midterms. It's just not going to happen. You can agitate for it. You can put the pressure on demanding it, chimp at Congress about it. But recognize also that it's just not a political reality right now. He continues, a lot of people who said the GOP condemning socialism was performative and a waste of time also want the House to do other performative things. The system has stalled due to polarization, slim majorities, and the filibuster. This is somewhat how the Founding Fathers envisioned the Senate. They wanted the Senate to resist flash-in-the-pan politics. The House is up every 2 years, so representatives are forced to listen to the people and always work for them. The Senate was insulated from this. With only a third up each cycle and institutional advantages, its job is to prevent quick, impulsive politics. The current filibuster is not what they imagined, but they did intend something to block short-term politics. Just as we were and still are electing Reagan, Bush, and Romney-style senators, MAGA and America First haven't been around long enough to take over the Senate. It'll take another 10 to 20 years before that happens. And you got to recognize this. This is not like, this isn't saying, oh, this is the way the Founding Fathers wanted it to work. It's saying, this is the way they constructed it. This is the way that it works. You got to recognize this is a decades-long game that we're playing here. And if you can't hack that, that's fine, but you should probably find a different hobby. He also added, the system is designed to stall at a federal level. If you want true radical changes, vote in your local primaries. Set up the T today so you can swing tomorrow. Your local government also likely affects you more than the federal, and it generally actually works. Unless you're in Minnesota, perhaps. And then also this, talking about, so Miranda Devine, who's been kind of a friend of the administration, but she published this article, damning report labels FBI rudderless ship under Kash Patel and Dan Bongino, who are accused of being preoccupied with social media and building personal resumes. And I don't know who Ben Williamson is, but I guess, okay, he's Assistant Director for Public Affairs at the FBI. This is a good tweet. He says, Kash and Dan took over an agency with an approval rating below 40%. Knowing that, they came in as disruptors and are choosing to do things differently. Of course, that's going to receive criticism from the old guard and outside pundits. That's to be expected. What's more surprising here is to see the New York Post elevating a dossier of anonymous complaints from current and ex-FBI personnel as some form of gospel. Here's also what they don't tell you. The unconventional approach may get criticism, but the data says it's working. Violent crime arrests, 100% increase. Espionage arrests, 40% increase. Homicide rate, double-digit drop from 2024, on track for a record low year. Child victims identified or located, a 23% increase. Nihilistic violent extremism arrests, almost a 500% increase with the FBI and partners. They've also turned over nearly 40,000 documents to Congress, by far a record in just 9 months. We have new major productions on cases like Arctic Frost nearly every week. You can criticize the approach, but you can't deny the numbers. And they've been historic with President Trump's leadership. Kash, Dan, and Andrew, this would be Andrew Bailey, all know challenging a bureaucracy comes with pushback, but they still choose to do it, and frankly, that's what the voters demanded. Also, yes, Slutty Milk, no more ADL or SPLC partnerships, a bunch of them on immigration enforcement, hitting cities hard to reduce crimes, firing non-loyalists as well. This stuff isn't as sexy. It's not going to get you, you're not going to get big viral posts by talking about it. But given that the FBI is Like, I think the CIA is just full-blown, completely detached rogue agency. The FBI is probably well in that direction, if not there already. Even if you were to, like, the FBI would be a little bit easier to shut down. Like, the CIA, you can't shut down. The FBI, you kind of might be able to, but you're also not gonna. You can't just shut down the Federal Bureau of Investigation without something to replace it. Because there has to be some sort of federal investigation apparatus. And there are other institutions that could be readapted for that. But that's not going to happen in 9 or 10 months. So, recognizing that they came in and took over a basically completely degenerate, corrupt institution, and they've still managed what they have, should be, I think, a major feather in their cap. Also knowing that a huge number of their subordinates are explicitly subversive and working against them. Yeah, Cash pulled agents from Five Eyes countries due to budget cuts. Yep. And also banished a bunch from the big main offices into, sent them basically off like collecting splinters. Has the FBI been perfect? Have they been without missteps? Probably not. I'm sure there's been plenty of things that could have been done differently. But this goes back to, I think, you have to have managed expectations. You see, a lot of people are like, oh, they've been in office for a year and they haven't done... they've been in office for a year and they haven't accomplished 20 years worth of things. It's like... I don't understand what you expect. Like, how did you have expectations that high? This isn't a damning with faint praise thing. It's like you got to understand the magnitude of the project in front of us. So in a weird way, it's almost like the people who are really demoralized and given over to doom pilling are the most unrealistic. Like they have the most unrealistically high expectations. It's kind of a weird paradox, I suppose. All right, and of course, I put this back to back with the story about Kash Patel intentionally. Kiwi Farms user breaks down Izzat, the Indian subcontinent's cultural honor system. If you guys haven't heard about this one yet, strap in. I mean, you kind of already know, but hearing it laid out like this is just... Send them all back. Just send them all. We don't need them. It effectively explains every single trope about Indian behavior. They all participate in an invisible clout-chasing game that involves screwing over everyone as much as possible. Let's read. This is from Gluttonous Manslob on Kiwi Farms. Thank you, Gluttonous Manslob. Hi, I didn't see this term mentioned in the thread, so I wanted to share this all with you. It's about Izzat. Some posts have mentioned saving face, which is Izzat, but I wanted to elaborate on it. Izzat has no direct translation into English. We only have terms that can broach the same concepts such as honor or reputation or face. Izzat is so much more than that. It's a zero-sum game of collective honor shared by whole groups of people, all of whom take it very, very seriously. A system like this isn't just foreign to Enlightenment values, but I'd argue it's antithetical to every sensible form of governance on the planet. It will destroy any system that assumes good faith. Izzat conflicts are not about who is right and who is wrong. It's about who wins and who loses. This means it's a zero-sum game where just about any action is justified, including murder, to restore the lost Izzat. Izzat is a limited social currency, and the easiest way to get it is to take it from someone else. Winning is righteous in Izzat. Losing is unrighteous. This means that if someone plays the game of Izzat well enough, they can get away with just about anything. Murder, rape, scamming, cheating, stealing. The only morality in Izzat is the protection of your group's collective ego. The only appropriate response when your Izzat is attacked is the complete destruction of whoever insulted it. Fuck you, bloody! Yeah, let's get one of these.
Indians. Good morning, bastards.
Two people get into an argument. They might escalate, but chances are it won't be that bad. I.e., sorry I broke your garden gnome. With two Indians in an argument, the stakes are always deadly thanks to Izzat. Neither of them can back down, nor can they admit fault. Admitting fault is seen as deliberately humiliating yourself. Not only that, but because Izzat is shared, you are shaming everyone who shares your Izzat. So admitting fault or taking responsibility for a problem is a form of social suicide. This means even if the dispute was over something completely fucking stupid or trivial, like a broken garden gnome, it could spiral into a decades-long honor feud. Izzat is also the reason why police are reluctant to get involved in disputes. Because Izzat is a zero-sum game, all participants are involved in the game. If a policeman sides with one family over another in an Izzat dispute, this means that he's deliberately taking the side of that family and dishonoring the other. This marks him for retribution by the offending party. Without parties being able to be impartial, then centralized authority cannot effectively function. Let's say someone in India complains about a broken water pipe. Instead of the problem being addressed, the official responsible for the water pipe denies it's a problem and counterattacks him instead because daring to question his efficacy in his role was challenging his Izzat. So the official destroys the person who brought the problem up and the water pipe never gets fixed. Izzat is also the reason why Indian managers are so famous for hiring more Indians. It's because, from the manager's perspective, he's using his position to gain an invisible social currency. Merit and actual qualifications come second to that idea. If he hired a Westerner, he would not gain or even lose Izzat by doing so. He has a very strong cultural incentive not to be impartial. Meanwhile, if he can strong-arm dozens of Indians into a company, he is gaining huge quantities of Izzat and conspirators who owe an absolute debt to him. It's not uncommon to see Indians gloat about their success in the West. Justine!
Constant slow building is the name of the game. The problems cannot be fixed in 4 years, but we also cannot allow any backward motion either. The purpose of the chimp-truce dialectic.
Yes.
We gotta get rid of all the aesthetists. Deport them? I suppose that too.
Yes. One minor correction. That would be the chimp-truce dialectic. But yes, we got to get rid of all the Izzatists. We could deport them as well. Let's see. Okay, it's not uncommon to see Indians gloat about their success in the West. And yes, Izzat is very much a system that enables short-term success. But the fundamental reality is the prosperity that these Indians find so attractive in the first place wouldn't exist if the West practiced something similar to Izzat. Our systems can only exist on the assumption of good faith, and not a majority of people exploiting them for destructive short-term gain. On top of that, if an Indian causes the systems and companies he comes into contact with to collapse, then he can just go back to India with his plunder. He has no stakes in the long-term prosperity, functionality, or stability of these systems. The stakes are completely asymmetrical in the Indians' favor. And who was it? Which peoples were responsible for the introduction of Indians, the mass introduction of Indians, into the West? They have a multi-hundred-year history of breaking the seal and incorporating Indians into Western societies. Yes, the North Sea Nexus. Look at my wife, the no agenda listener. You all know about that infamous video of that Indian scamming a food bank. Once again, winning is righteous, losing is not. By employing clever means, Jugad, of course it's called Jugad, he successfully extracted more resources for himself and his family. From the perspective of Jugad, a rule is not something to respect, but merely an obstacle to the Indian's own gain. Since he cheated the system and wasn't caught, he is seen as a righteous and dignified man in the Izzat framework. They're basically low IQ Jews. I read a story in India about a man offering to pay another man to use a public toilet instead of defecating openly. The latter left and came back with several friends and beat the former to death. The problem was not that he was defecating openly, but that he was criticized for doing so. And with Izzat, it's not an eye for an eye. Izzat is often an eye for a whole head. Disproportionately and brutally annihilating your enemies is the correct move to make, because you take back your lost Izzat and then some. This kind of vindictiveness would be rightly seen as horrifying and disgusting in most of the world. There was a green text from 4chan. Hold on, let me zoom this in here. There was a green text from 4chan. I don't have it, so bear with me. Anon knew an Indian. This Indian would make outlandish claims. He could bench press 500 kilograms. He was a billionaire. He did arms deals with the U.S. government. Anon said he didn't believe the Indian. The Indian reacted with righteous indignation. The situation escalated to the point where the Indian was emailing Anon death threats. Anon responded by forwarding the emails to the police. The Indian killed himself. Anon was left baffled at the whole situation and had no idea what the fuck just happened. So without Izzat, this looks like an utterly insane and pointless sequence of events. But with Izzat, the Indian's actions suddenly make sense. He was boasting to increase his Izzat. And when Anon simply stated his disbelief, it was seen as a vicious attack on his Izzat. The Indian escalated the situation to restore the lost Izzat. When the police got involved, the dispute had become public, so the Indian's shame had increased to unbearable levels. He committed suicide in order to save his remaining Izzat. Anon had no idea what Izzat was, or if he did, he didn't mention it, yet the Indian's actions perfectly aligned with this framework. This is what makes me believe the green text was genuine. The Western idea of merit is competence in a role. Merit in Izzat is determined by what lengths you will go to achieve a goal, with competence merely being one path. It often becomes a secondary path, as printing a degree that says you're qualified to be a jet pilot is just as good as being able to actually fly a jet in the eyes of Izzat. In other words, Izzat selects for appearance over authentic merit or morality. Now, a counter-argument an Indian might make is Izzat is a dated word, or we don't use that word. I like to compare it to the word vendetta. Vendetta in Italian, where my Luanguners at? Vendetta in Italian has a very specific meaning, a familial blood feud where revenge must be taken to restore honor, etc. This word would not exist if it didn't reflect a specific facet of Italian life. Izzat is no different. Hell, I've had to write several paragraphs just to explain what the hell Izzat is. Izzat isn't an archaic term either. It's well and truly alive in the modern Indian lexicon. If Izzat were regularly discussed openly, this would be considered one of the greatest possible insults in the Izzat framework. Izzat is why Indians do mass reports, death threats, false flags, and various other underhanded tactics when a Westerner exposes something they don't want people to see, such as the poop throwing festival. If I knew something like this existed in the West, I would say, wow, that's disgusting, we should stop this. But in India, the problem is not the point. The point is the problem being exposed and the perceived insult to Izzat from exposing the problem. The water pipe never gets fixed. The one saving grace is Izzat performs awfully in the long term. Once Indians displace you, they'll go back to playing this insane game among themselves. It's what happened to companies that got hit by Izzat. This is also why there aren't any homegrown Indian companies that have the same influence as Microsoft or Google. Whenever they start getting ahead, their companies implode from infighting, nobody doing their jobs, everybody trying to cheat each other, and nobody addressing critical issues. Systems that delegate authority and work on good faith eventually win out over zero-sum honor feuding. Izzat cannot maintain complex systems because its players are only concerned with short-term gain. With the West, the issue is that it often fails to live up to its own ideals. It's not a perfect system, but we can course correct and address problems pragmatically. With Izzat, Indians live up to those ideals very, very often. When you see the dysfunctionality of India, remember that it's a feature of Izzat, not a bug. Jugad is a term also warranting more explanation, but my post is long enough as it is. So if I ever learn about what Jugad is, then I guess I could tell you guys about it as well. So now you guys know what Izzat is. And I commission you guys to go forth with this knowledge and make good use of it. Be prudent in your employment, use of the term Izzat. Use it as a perhaps a targeted strike when necessary. Yeah, Enchanted Hero, Primal versus Civil Frame. That's a good depiction of it. It's spelled Izzat. the Indian gods reincarnated the Indian because he scammed an Aryan white man. Ryan Isaac says some bad news. Friend from GE Engine Repair Middle Management says Indians are overrunning the place. Quality destroyed in real time. Not the worst engines yet, but will be deteriorating. Yeah. Yeah, it's just, once again, thank His Majesty's great empire for introducing these bizarre people to the West and importing them en masse. What a great thing what a great debt we owe our limey brethren. Anyways, that is all I have for you guys tonight. That is the end of Monday's Astrolabe. Happy December to all of you guys. The house smells glorious. I can smell it up here in my office. I could smell the wonderful bone broth that my wife is making. We've got the Christmas tree up. We've got a fantastic fake tree. The second best available non-toxic fake tree from IKEA. My wife got a great deal on it, and it looks fantastic. Got the lights on it. Got the Christmas music playing when I was downstairs earlier. Feeling very festive, and it's quite cold for Texas. It's like low 40s and very windy. So definitely winter has arrived. Appreciate all of you guys. Go join the Kingpill Discord, kingpill.com. Come join us in our daily chats over there. Make sure you're following the Kingpill Telegram channel, following me on Twitter, @RealKingpilled. Appreciate your contributions tonight, Justine, to my streamer salary. We're 1% of the way there, 29 days to go to the end of 2025. We are almost to 2026, which is crazy to think about. But make sure you listen to EWBSX on the daily, getting some Christmas content in there. The cyberbully is hard at work. So download the app for free on iOS and Android, and you can listen to EWBSX AM, alpha mode, the uncensored, potentially NSFW version, or if you want G-rated, then EWBSX FM, family mode, for listening to around the kids, at work. We're doing our best to make sure I apologize. A couple of you guys have reached out and said, hey, there's some not necessarily family mode friendly stuff on there, and we're working on making sure we keep it tuned. So is anyone getting whammed by EWBSX? I don't know. That's a good question. I'll have to check. I'll have to ask old CB. If Daryl isn't supervised enough, I'm sure he's probably going to try to slip it in there. But it won't be. It's not the usual Christmas music by and large, and it's not exclusively Christmas music as well. So at least for right now, early on in December, we've got some Christmas songs scattered here and there, and then some normal stuff as well. So it's free to download. Go listen to it on the daily. Justine, you have the last word.
Ironic that the Hindus most strictly adhere to the Jagad. The problem is that if the West gets good again, will the Raiders not come again? Thank you. The artists of the royal houses got scammed into starting the Is It Gold Rush. Never redeem. Never SAR.
So true. Never redeem. Never SAR. One more time.
Good morning, bastards.
We're going to kill them. They're going to be like dead.
All right, guys. Have yourselves a good night. I'll be back tomorrow with another episode of the Astrolabe. Until then, I will leave you with Hulk.
When they took a shot at my hero, and they tried to kill the next president of the United States, enough was enough, and I said,